Good afternoon. Welcome to the CDB Physical Development Committee meeting. Today is, what's today? June the 9th. Yes. So we'll turn it over to the committee. Yes, sir.
We'll take you through our agenda today. We'll kick off, as always, with Mr. Martin, who'll take us through a minute for planning before we run through a few general business items. Mr. Martin.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Dr. Wilder. Just a few plans that might be of interest to you. We've received an application to rezone 1.1 acres on Edgewood Avenue to allow the use of the property as a commercial roofing company. So that'll be coming to you soon. We have received the plan for the addition to Jubilee Family Development Center at 1516 Florida Avenue. Also a site plan proposing the construction of a 4-story, 22,382 square feet mixed use building at 5900 and 5906 Ford Avenue. Construction of a mixed use retail and daycare center at 1000 Rosedale Boulevard. Also a conditional use permit application proposing to convert an existing building at 802 Court Street into 4 apartments. Another rezoning application for 533 Leesville Road to allow office space. And then also the phase 2 plan for the community Dunbar Community Schoolyard has been submitted. And those improvements will include items such as sidewalks, dumpster enclosures, a gazebo, and updates to tennis courts. So those are some items you might find of interest.
Thank you. Any questions?
33 Leesville office space.
Mm-hmm.
What is that now? That's a rezoning?
Yes, sir, it is.
What's it zoned now?
It is zoned B3 conditional. No, I apologize. It's zoned B1 limited business, and they're requesting to go to B3 community business district. I can get you more information if you
Yeah,
like.
if you could just shoot a little details on that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other
We'll
questions?
just send it to you.
Other questions? Great. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Next, we go to Department of Water Resources.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council member. Actually, this is the don't need you yet. Yes. So the first item that we have is a Verizon wireless lease at our Abert water filtration plant. It's leasing approximately 5,600 square feet of property for a cell tower. The annual revenues to the water fund will be a little over $11,000. This would actually help our operations there at the water plant with connectivity issues with their pump station down on the James River, and just overall cell service and internet service there at the water plant. So definitely would help us, and it's not infringing on any of the property that we would need for any type of future expansion or upgrades or anything like that. So we feel like this would be a good win-win situation for Verizon as well as us. So I'll be glad to answer any questions related to that.
How long is the agreement for?
I think it's I believe it's a 5-year lease agreement. It is in 5-year increments.
Let's see.
I believe it's 5 years. Yes, a 5-year term.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No questions? Do we need a motion on this?
Yeah.
We do. What? So we do need a motion?
Yes, it'll be, this will go to a public hearing.
Or goes to public hearing? Okay.
Yes, yeah,
So after the public hearing then?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So with no other questions? Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next.
All right. The next item will also go to a public hearing.
Okay.
This is request, and this may be a little controversial related to the development itself. This is related to 1280 Enterprise Drive. It's a sanitary sewer easement that when the property was originally subdivided, there was an easement that was granted to the city for a future sewer line extension in anticipation of further subdividing the property. The property has been sold and has been mentioned at the city council meetings recently as being developed by a developer. The developer has requested that the easement, the sewer easement that bisects the property, be vacated. There is no public sewer in the easement, and there's no anticipation of any future sewer in the easement based upon the current development of the proposed development of the site. So from our standpoint, we don't need the easement. But again, this is a developer request, and I'm just bringing it forward to the committee and ultimately a public hearing to see what council's prerogative is on this particular issue. Yes.
If a future city council should decide that the need for that additional sewage capacity is needed, is there an alternative that can be used, or are we shutting ourselves off from any future capability
So
to increase it?
This basically is just an easement for a sewer line extension into the property. If it remains one parcel, as the development plan indicates now, there would be no impact to.
So never need a plan.
We would never need the easement in the future because it'd be a private development.
It would mean that building probably was torn down, and maybe then they would want
Potentially.
to change it, and we could.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, not really advocating one way or another on this one. Just bringing it forth for consideration at the request of the developer and property owner.
Any other questions? And when do these come back for a public hearing?
This will be June 23rd.
June 23rd.
Both the
Both
one
of them
before
23rd.
this and this one will be at the June 23rd meeting for a public hearing.
Excellent. Any other questions? No. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next is ratifying the sale of 805 Court Street.
Thank you, Dr. Weiler.
Yes, sir.
So council had originally approved the sale of this building. This is the former West Building on Court Street. It was approved on May 12th by a vote of 7-0. When it got to consent agenda on May 26, there was some discussion around minutes, and it was that consent agenda was not passed unanimously. I think we've discussed this before, that in the case of public property, we just like to make sure that titles are clean. So we are asking for PDC to provide a recommendation, and then this would come back later this evening for general business.
Thank you, Kent, and I apologize. Thank
It's
you
okay.
for
Yes, ma'am.
getting us started off. Have we gone through general business for 2 and 3?
Yes.
Okay, so we're in the ratifying for 805. Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I move for approval. You need a recommendation from us.
Yes,
I move for
Yeah.
approval.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. None opposed? Awesome.
We appreciate that.
Yep, thank you. And I do have a question, but good to go. With this ratification, will there need to be another then majority approval, or will this count for the second majority approval?
This will
Okay.
count for.
So it's
your
not going to go to a
majority.
consent agenda again?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
No, ma'am.
cool. Awesome. All right. Informational items.
All right. Chair Timmer, this was your request
Yep.
about corridors. So, what we as staff refer to as corridors are primarily set around our transportation network. But the presentation we've brought before you today, Ms. Hart is going to kind of take you through the transportation aspect, but then we also want to make sure that the committee is aware of all the other things that go into building it. So we'll do this in a team effort. Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Martin, and Mr. Woody will also be forward to do that. So that's right. That's right. We're fortunate. We passed me the remote there. So, so with that, we'll get started. So. That is a quick button.
Sorry about that. As Kent kicked it off, generally when we're talking about corridors, we're talking about corridors associated with transportation, but as you'll hear more about, it also may include trails. Our corridors are designed to fit a purpose. Our primary roads, they're roads like Timberlake Road, Ward's Road, Rivermont. Then we've got our secondary roads that are more things like connectors, like Ward's Ferry Road and Holland's Mill Road and Old Grace Mill Road that connect to the primary roads. And then finally, you've got your neighborhood roads. We design corridors for multiple users. We call it multimodal, but really what that is saying is we try to design for vehicle, pedestrian, bikes, and transit as well. There are a lot of variables that influence corridors. There are requirements, and those relate primarily to zoning and potentially overlay districts, and Tom will provide more detail on that. We've got investments, which are primarily road improvement and water, sewer line, and storm improvements. But we do coordinate with all the utilities that do improvements in our corridor, which includes gas, fiber, APCO whenever we need to. Whatever utility is there, we coordinate with them. And we're also going to talk about incentives, which are various types of incentives primarily offered through economic development. And either Margette or Kent is going to talk about that today. So, okay, for transportation, our design considerations are primarily these 5 are safety. So we do studies for vehicle and pedestrian improvements, and that includes speed studies like what we're doing on Leesville Road. So we're conducting a speed study now. So we really look at safety. VDOT helps us with some of these studies, which are called STAR studies, which are strategically affordable roadway solutions that really focus on safety. We design looking at congestion. We look at signal improvements, signal replacement, signal coordination, and then we do some spot intersection improvements at times. It could be like an extension of a turn lane to improve traffic. We've got our maintenance program, which is a signal replacement, our paving program, pavement marking, and drainage improvements that we work on as well. We do projects that are in support of economic development and redevelopment. So we work with Margette on that. And then we talk about accessibility, sidewalk repairs and sidewalk additions. Really, we're only funded for sidewalk repairs within the Public Works budget. We are not really funded for sidewalk additions. How we make sidewalk additions is through VDOT and federal highway money, which is funded through TAP, Transportation Alternatives Programs, that provide for connectivity. They're not going to provide, those funds will not provide for like a fill-in between two houses or a block. They will not pay for stuff like that. It has to be related to connectivity. So those are our main design considerations for transportation projects. Then we talk a little bit about funding, and Lee has been to City Council several times with some of these requests, so they should be familiar to you. One of the main ones we use from VDOT is revenue sharing. It's 50 local money, 50% VDOT money. Those are generally smaller projects and are more flexible in how we're allowed to use those funds. But each of these funding sources have different requirements and different focus. So I'll try to talk about that as I go through here. Smart scale tends to be your larger projects, and we've got several going on in the city right now. 501-221 is one that Lee is working on in design. Wards Ferry Road improvements, which include the roundabout, that is going to be a VDOT managed project, but those are smart scale funding. And then our big Candler's Mountain interchange improvements, they are smart scale funded and they will be managed by VDOT. I talked a little bit about transportation alternatives, again, focus on bike and pedestrian safety and accessibility and shared use paths, those kind of things. That is about an 80-20 share, 20% local, 80% federal. And then we've got highway safety improvement program. These are systemic improvements, and actually we've got a project going on right now where you'll see reflective back plates being put on all of our signals to make them more visible. But we buy things like controllers and those things. And finally, we've got state of good repair money, and that is funds we can get from primarily the federal government for pavement projects and as well as bridge repair projects. One of the things that I really want you to understand about this is we try to do a really good job at leveraging this money. So far we have leveraged 137 million local funds with 319 state or federal funds for a total of $456 million worth of projects being done since 2001. And I primarily have to give Lee the credit on that.
Could you repeat those numbers really quickly?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
$137 million local funds,
Yeah.
$319 million state or federal funds for a total of $456 million since 2001.
That's great. Thank you.
Here's some examples of some revenue share projects. The one on the left is Breezewood Drive improvements. We've improved the beginning of the road from Aldi down to about Tharp Funeral Home, and we never got to finish it. It kind of, I think there ended up being a recession and we never finished it. But these improvements are going to be drainage improvements. The pavement is in poor condition. There are no sidewalks on that road. And there has been a lot of private investment down that road as well, with apartments and homes being built at the end. So this is a revenue share project. We work closely with Water Resources, and they're going to pay for the water line, curb and gutter, and drainage improvements. The 5th Street corridor is a project we're working on right now. This is the final project that completes the 5th Street plan that Tom will talk about more. And we will have actually improved this entire corridor when we're done with John Lynch Bridge, from the Amherst County side all the way up to the plaza. We have got good sidewalk, good pedestrian features, and good pavement in that whole area. So we've completed that whole corridor. And again, it is pedestrian improvements, ADA improvements, drainage improvements, better landscaping, and we have coordinated all this with the Water Resources Department as well. This is the project dashboard that I'm sure you've been introduced to before, so I won't say a whole lot about this, but as you can see, we've got transportation projects all over the city, so they're spread out all over all 4 wards. In addition to our 5-year CIP capital plan, we have a list of projects beyond the 5 years. And it's just a list of projects in the back of the CIP book. And these are some of the examples that are on there. It's not all the projects, but just examples. The reason that we do that is because in order to apply for these state and federal funds, we have to have these projects in our capital improvement program. So this just gives us flexibility in the future as things change, programs change, opportunities come to us. They're in the CIP, and then we can apply for funds. So some of the corridor studies are conducted by various groups. We have conducted a corridor study before. Planning does those for us. The Central Virginia Planning District helps us with some plans. VDOT has done plans. I've already mentioned the STARS studies. The studies basically evaluate existing and projected conditions, including safety, and looks for deficiencies. It gives us alternatives and gives us planning cost estimates. From those studies, we add projects into the CIP, and some of the large corridor studies, a lot of times we have to phase those in because there's no way we could afford them. So we try to phase projects in over a number of years. And again, just to drive it home, to qualify for VDOT, state or federal funds, we have to have them in our CIP, either in the 5-year or in the list of beyond projects, and we need to have a study done as well. So that is my part of the presentation.
Okay, well, what I'd like to do if we could, because I have a couple questions and we have a lot of sections and then we're gonna have to rush through because we've got 3 large presentations. So does anyone have questions about what Gaynell said or Ms. Hart said? And then
You divided variables that influence corridors into 3 requirements, investments, and incentives. Where would sidewalks fit in that?
To me, it would be an investment, is what I would call that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got a project in Ward 3 that is a small sidewalk, but there's a lot of development around it and some danger to citizens in Ward 3 that's been brought up to my attention by several citizens. So I just want to bring that up, that I'd like to talk about it at some point.
Okay.
any other questions? Okay. I've got a couple really quickly, and they might require just some follow-up discussion later, but going back to the Breezewood Drive adjustments, with the water resources component, does that count towards our 50% in the revenue share program with the state, or is that in addition to?
That would be in addition to.
Okay.
They pay for that. They fund that entirely. They're an enterprise fund, so they fund that entirely.
Okay, that's great. That just helps me keep track of pots of money. And then with transportation, this is a little bit of a request, or also needing information on how to make sure that this is added in the future. But there was a lot of discussion previously with Wigington and West Point in the EDA land about the southbound ramp on 501. And so the possibility of that being a stoplight, or the possibility of that being a roundabout, and that the roundabout, one, would be a better option long-term, but 2, that it would be more likely to capture state funds, whether through revenue sharing or smart scale or what have you. What do we need to do to get that listed in the planned projects beyond? And it's kind of a 2-part question, because I know you mentioned that a study is required. A traffic study has been done, but it wasn't done through the city, but it was done through really the premier when it comes to traffic studies, as has been acknowledged. So does the study have to be funded by the city, or is the current study sufficient? And then how do we get that added to the project list as we look at CIP future projects? We can put in an application for it.
Yeah, I think that's a good, do you have an answer to that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. So to be added to the CIP, it's a matter of council saying it needs to be added to the CIP.
Okay.
That's the simple one. The study part of it, It's got to be the right type of study, and I'm not quite sure that that was done as far as what are alternatives, what are, you've got to go through a V-Trans
Okay.
part of it, a study, and see if it matches V-Trans. You've got to come up, and it needs to have a cost estimate in it. And so there's several parts to the study that needs to be done to be able to help fill out the application for the funding.
Right. Okay.
So I had
So
to
it's
go
two-
back and look at that.
So it's two-part as far as getting it added to the CIP, and then which components are required in the context of the study for the application process.
Yes.
Okay.
Might have to update the study is what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you. All right. Next section. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon again. I'm going to talk to you about how the comprehensive plan supports our corridors. So Gaynell talked to you a little bit about it, but in planning terms, a corridor is a linear path that connects people to places. Now we're talking a lot about roadways. They can also be waterways or trails. And typically these corridors intersect one another at some point. So for transportation, they bring together different modes such as vehicular traffic, mass transit, pedestrian and bicycles. Corridors also have a profound effect on adjacent land uses. And that's why it's so important to align our zoning with the desired development patterns that we'd like to see, as well as also controlling access points to prevent future congestion. Corridors are important for economic development in that they link our industrial and employment areas to people also to promote growth. So comprehensive plans, I know you've probably heard a lot about it, and you're going to hear more about it in August when Rachel gives you an update, but comprehensive plans are required by state code. And we're required to look at them, review them every 5 and do an update every 10. And the comprehensive plan establishes a clear vision of the future of the city of Lynchburg, how to achieve that vision, and also sets policy guidance on how to, just a guide for decision makers, which is council. The plan also identifies tasks that should be pursued to help us achieve that vision and the goals. Specifically, state code requires a transportation element in the comprehensive plan. And that portion is to identify transportation needs for our current needs and also the future needs of the city, along with planning level cost estimates. So I would think that things like the roundabout or traffic signal on Wigington Road are going to be included in that transportation element, along with the cost element. The other important thing is if you're using your comprehensive plan correctly, this is according to Tom, it will help you drive your CIP and what investments you do, especially for transportation. So this is an example of the plan framework map that's in the current comprehensive plan. And this map identifies things like our gateways where people enter and leave the city, which really develops first impressions. It identifies resource conservation areas, neighborhood conservation areas, revitalization areas, areas that we would like to see developed, and also employment areas and how those areas are in proximity to and relate to our corridors. So that's the comprehensive plan, which is, well,
Tom,
sir,
can you get a map that these old eyes can actually read?
absolutely.
I'm on the struggle bus over here, even on the big one on the screen, but I am interested in it, so I'd like to see it.
Just so you know, I'm on the struggle bus too. Which
I think there's more than one of us.
Vice Mayor, we'll put a full-size map in our memo when we do our follow-up.
Perfect. That'd really be helpful. Thank you, Ken.
All right, so comprehensive plan, that's really the 10,000 foot view of the entire city. When we get into our corridor plans, these are strategic documents that look at specific areas in greater detail, and they look to align transportation, land use, economic development along these major corridors or specific neighborhoods, and we'll look at some more of those in the future. Corridor plans are created with and vetted by the public, just like the comprehensive plan, with ultimate adoption by City Council. The end result of these corridor plans is creating vibrant and connective communities while maximizing infrastructure efficiency. So think about a plan that talks about revitalizing or redoing streetscape or whatever. If we know that's what we want, and then our friends at Water Resources, who we depend on a great deal for things, have water line projects or sewer projects, it makes a whole lot of sense to really capitalize and invest the dollars at the same time, because there's definite cost savings, there's time improvements in getting the projects completed on time. And if we'll look at Fifth Street at the end, and we could not have accomplished that project without Water Resources. It just wouldn't have been cost effective for us. So corridor plans also can lead to zoning ordinance amendments, including overlay districts and text amendments, to help us have requirements or regulations to encourage the type of development we'd like to see along those areas. And two examples of those are the Scenic Corridor, which runs out 501 Boonesboro Road, but also the Fifth Street Revitalization Corridor. So this is a list of corridor and area studies that are currently that we have done, and they are in various stages of implementation. The most senior plan on this list is the Midtown Plan that was done in 2005. But if you look at the improvements to Kemper Street out to Lynchburg General Hospital, that was a result of this plan and study. The most recent plan would be the Diamond Hill plan that was done in 2024. There are some plans in here that are specifically geared towards just transportation improvements, such as the Wards Ferry Road Plan, Route 221 Corridor, Grays Mill Road, Forest Brook Road, and Atlanta Avenue. So moving on, this is the Oddfellows Road Campbell Avenue plan. This was adopted in 2013, and really what was the catalyst for this plan was the bridge over 460 and the interchange. This plan went in and looked at how Oddfellows Road could be rebuilt to accommodate new volumes of truck traffic, a new travel route to Liberty University, as well as an opportunity to provide a much needed facelift to one of the city's largest employment areas. This plan included shared use paths for pedestrians, bicyclists, center and left turn lanes, as well as roundabouts. And all of these improvements were funded by VDOT, and I believe at the tune of $29+ million. So also in that plan was Campbell Avenue, because we knew that once Oddfellows Road was done and once Candler's Mountain Road, some improvements are done there, some pressure would be taken off Campbell Avenue. So we looked at that. There are going to be some targeted improvements for Campbell Avenue, and those improvements are currently in the pre-application stage with Smart Scale. So as you can probably see, there's a lot of interaction between planning staff, Public Works, Engineering, Water Resources, and even our friends over at Parks and Recreation. These plans are not done in vacuums. So Fifth Street, which was one of my first plans and one that I'm very proud of. This plan was adopted in 2006 and was just transformative for the Fifth Street corridor, and again was a prime example of utilizing our infrastructure efficiencies, basically coordinating streetscape and utility. This plan included overhead utility relocations, a new raw water line, potable water, new sewer lines relinings, and they were all done in conjunction with one another to minimize construction and cost timelines. What is the result of that? You see the picture in the middle, that was the streetscape prior. That's looking north towards downtown. Here we see the roundabout, which was in the first phase with the statue of Mayor Thornhill in the middle. And you can see how the new streetscape really created more of a pedestrian environment, but also created the potential for new development. We've had new construction with the healthcare facility on the left there. We've had new restaurants. We've had up at the Humbles building has been renovated into mixed use and apartments. We've had new apartments built down at the Court Street intersection. We've had townhomes built. So it's really been transformative for that area. Is there more work to do? Yes, not from a streetscape standpoint because they're doing the last phase of that, but it's really a way that has improved this corridor and also connected it to the surrounding neighborhoods. So as Gaynell mentioned, the fourth and final photograph, which I believe that fire hydrant is an example of, is currently in construction, and I believe it's anticipated to be completed in December of this year or January next year. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend, Tim Mitchell.
All right, good afternoon again. So as has been mentioned, we coordinate the timing of a lot of our projects with major transportation projects. We do our own master plans and prioritizations, but then we typically look at those in conjunction with the other projects that are going on, and we'll move projects up or down on our list as far as priorities if there's a pending transportation project that we need to coordinate with. We also take advantage of transportation projects to improve water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure. One of our philosophies has been, when we go work in an area, we don't want to go back for another 50 years. We want to get all the utilities done and taken care of so that we don't have to go back and dig streets up and that type of thing. On a smaller scale, Public Works publishes a paving schedule each spring and fall, I believe, and we coordinate and to the best that we can any work that we have in the corridors that are going to be paved or overlaid so that we can get the work done in advance of the paving so we don't go dig up new asphalt. And then coordination with the I mentioned our master plans. We also, not only do we look at infrastructure current needs, but we're looking at future needs as well. So we're looking at that as we go. And then we have regional agreements with their water and sewer systems with Amherst, Bedford, and Campbell County. So we coordinate our efforts with those regional agreements as well. Just a little bit about our water master plan. We've got our water master plan at least through 2050 laid out. And this is prioritizing water lines throughout the city from urgent, high, medium, and low priorities to be replaced and renewed. But as I mentioned, we also, in the 2050 plan, we're also looking at future growth areas and future capacity needs in our sewer and our water infrastructure. So we're trying to prepare for that as we go forward. And then again, as was mentioned, if there's a transportation project that overlays with some of these waterline needs, we certainly try to coordinate that with Public Works and community development and all the other stakeholders involved. A sewer master plan, in addition to maintaining our existing sewer system and the CSO work that we're doing, we're also looking at unsewered areas. And we've identified 19 major areas in the city that do not currently have sewer service. We're currently working and we'll finish up Richland Hills this year, and the plan is to move to Maple Hills next. But this goes well beyond 2050. You figure 2 to 3 years at least for each neighborhood, and there's 19 on the list, so that's 60 years, 40 to 60 years of projects identified right there. But things that we look at are probability of septic system failures. We look at geological issues in the area with the ground conditions. We look at capital costs per lot, residential impact, and other infrastructure improvements and priorities as we go through and prioritize this list. We mentioned examples of coordination projects. 221-501, we're going to be replacing asbestos cement water lines and older cast iron water lines in that area. In conjunction with that project, we're doing water line improvements with Breezewood Drive, Candlers Mountain Corridor. We just signed an agreement with VDOT to add an 8-inch water line to that project to better serve the 1005 zone. This was a problematic project for us because we had designed a bore across 460 and or a bore in the area to better serve the 1005 zone, and that's tunneling under the right of way. And we put it out to bid 2 or 3 times, did not receive any bidders on the project. So we took advantage of this opportunity to accomplish what we needed to do there. Just an example of a future corridor, and I mentioned this before to City Council, is the Ford Avenue corridor. The top picture is just some storm infrastructure improvements that need to be made in that area. The bottom picture is a modeling of flooding impacts to the area. In addition to the flooding, we have just overall infrastructure failure in that area, and we have a number of different projects going on. So trying to coordinate all that to make sure that the work that we're doing now doesn't hinder future work that we need to do when funding is available for that corridor. And with that, I'll turn it over to Wyatt unless there's any questions. Yes, sir.
There's a map here that interests me on, well, there's page 63, sewer master plan.
Yes.
And I see a lot of purple in Ward 3. And I would just like to request a larger map for my
We can.
older eyes so
we-
I could get a better idea of what's going on.
Yes.
I don't necessarily recognize all the neighborhoods, and I didn't see a total of mileage or foot replacements like the water plan. That's kind of interesting. I would like to see maybe as well as just a bigger map.
Okay. We can. do
Ward
that.
3.
All right. Will do.
All right, I've got 2. One for you, Mr. Martin. And this is probably requesting a follow-up presentation. With zoning and how that relates with corridors, we've had a number of zoning issues come up lately. One that comes to mind is Mr. DeWitt brought this up in a public hearing where the Wawa is going in near Cornerstone, that was zoned R1. And so there are these R1 areas that are really probably more suited for business or commercial, just with how the city's developed. Also, we've had a lot of talk about the number of unrelated persons living together, how it's different for short-term rental versus long-term rental. And so I would love possibly a list from your office and from staff of what are some updated zoning recommendations as we're looking at corridors and future development.
Yeah, I think specifically we were going to be talking about the majority of that in August
Okay,
with the update to the comprehensive plan.
great. Could we add a PDC to, I know, sorry, everyone, we're going into summer break and I was going to celebrate that, but maybe a PDC earlier in the day before finance, if it's going to be an August discussion?
We can, but the whole point of doing this with the comp plan is we want to make sure we're going to put the draft document out, make sure that we've got that public feedback. We think that will help inform. Then we'll bring what staff's hearing and what the public's telling you. So if you would give us to the end of August, that was one
Got
of
it.
the
Okay, end of
ideas
August. So it's
behind
more of a September discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the last meeting in August that will give you kind of the overview of what this looks like. And then to your point, if you have follow-up items from that, we can kind of work that in as it's going forward.
I'll talk to you on schedule. I just want to make sure that discussion precedes vote and I can,
This would not come back to you until much later in the year.
okay,
for vote.
cool.
Correct.
That's That's great. Awesome. I'm looking forward to that discussion. And then, Mr. Mitchell, thank you so much. And this is also probably a follow-up, and it goes to all department heads, but I feel like it specifically applies to you. We've got the legislative agenda coming up in the fall. It's going to be just around the corner with the summer break. Unfunded mandates impact you all tremendously, but they do all of our departments. I would love to hear from department heads what would be resourceful in the legislative agenda as we move forward, especially as we're looking at some of those unfunded mandates and how to make sure that we're at least covering y'all to the best of our ability. So not that our suggestions are always appreciated or valued in Richmond, but I'm happy to sponsor some of those and put those forward to the best of my ability. So I would love to get that from you.
And as part of how we pull together your legislative agenda, Ms. Braun gets department support specifically around unfunded mandates and new. So we'll make sure to highlight that when
That's
we do
great.
that update.
I appreciate
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you. Good afternoon again. So how do our parks support our corridors? So we provide alternate and active transportation routes for the city. Greenways for pedestrians and cyclists, provide safe commuter travel away from motorized traffic, and transform fragmented natural areas into connected networks. The map that you have there is from our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and it identifies potential inner and outer loop opportunities. So some of the ones that are dotted show potential and possible alternate routes later on, and the solid lines are the existing trail systems that we do have. Some of the current projects, our Peaks to Creeks Trail, which is off of Wigington Road in the 501 corridors, connects Peaksview Park to Ivy Creek Park. It's a proposed trail that stretches roughly 1.5 miles. The trail opportunities for business located at Ivy Creek Innovation Park, so in partnership with our friends at Economic Development. And it is a $15 million VDOT funded project as part of the Virginia Multi-Use Trails Initiative. Some of the current projects we have, and Mr. Martin referenced this earlier with cooperation with Mr. Mitchell and Water Resources, Lakeside Drive and Langhorne Road corridors, 2 projects that we operate within cooperation of Water Resources, our Creekside Trail reconstruction and our College Park improvements. The Creekside Trail reconstruction, you may remember just recently they had the ribbon cutting out there. It's following removal of the College Lake Dam and the stream restoration, catwalks and trails back to Blackwater Creek Park, and Langhorne Road replacement of east and west suspension bridges. College Park improvements, following the stormwater management improvements, and it will provide park loop, nature path, overlooks, recreational opportunities, gathering and play areas. And again, this was in cooperation and kind of following up with Mr. Mitchell and Water Resources coming through and doing their stormwater stuff. Future trail opportunities. So these are off of the first map from a master plan. This kind of identifies a closer view of those. These would be Lakeside Drive and Langhorne Road corridors. It's the Creekside Trail connection to Paramount Park and Sandusky Park. Utilize an existing easement on potential property that could be acquired by Water Resources that they have future needs for. And again, the Peaksview Park to Blackwater Creek Park would extend connectivity to existing park systems. And finally, a few of our future park opportunities. So Heritage Park improvements, Leesville Road corridor, field improvements, pickleball courts, playground, skate park, paved walking track. The Paramount Park improvements, both of these parks we worked with LCS to identify surplus property so we can identify park opportunities. And again, Lakeside Drive and Fort Avenue corridors provides a paved walking loop, dog park, and outdoor classroom. With Paramount Park, you may also remember that we had 2 grants that we went after and received, Virginia Outdoor Foundation and also the Department of Conservation and Recreation. And both of those projects are ongoing, and we hope to have some significant work done this summer. That's it for me. Be
Any
happy to.
questions? All right. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Future Ward 3. I've talked to the city manager a little bit about this, he was asking me to dream big, and I did. Dreaming Creek, we're doing some water improvements to a line out to Campbell County that follows from Living Tree, basically over to the barbecue place on Timberlake. And that's basically a wooded creek area with an underlying large main running out to Campbell. I think of connecting trails, and that one seems like maybe has some potential for connecting some parts of the city in a way that would be walking capable or bike capable. I've never really spoken about it out loud before, but long term, after Kurt Deemer's long gone, it would be pretty cool if that. And I looked at your overall map, and I saw that it would actually connect two trails, similar to what you're doing with some of the other projects. So just as a thought, you say you combine things and save money by working, if we're going to be digging up to enlarge that water line. Has anybody ever thought about maybe putting a little rails to trails where there is no rail, but sort of that kind of.
Yeah, so the design for that is ongoing. It's going to be touched on in the major projects. But just real quickly, that is a sewer line that's being replaced. We're going to have to acquire some new sewer easements in conjunction with that. I would assume if there's trails, there'd be some property acquisition and everything that would need to look at as well.
There's at least one road that Dreaming Creek that it would have to transverse somehow. But other than that, I think it's
Dreaming Creek Road.
Dreaming Creek. Yeah.
Take a look at it.
Down to the putt-putt and the
Absolutely.
barbecue place, but over there right behind Cornerstone and across the street from the tree, living
Tree.
Living Tree.
Mhm.
And they've already got some sort of park that's behind Cornerstone right there along the creek. So sort of the ideas there. The one road would be something we'd have to figure out, but long term, just wanted to put a bug in your ear.
We'll have some conversations and take a
Something
look
to think
at it.
about.
Also do the alignment.
All right, great. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you here. I'm sorry, cutting you off at the end. We have 9 minutes. We've got 3 really large, wonderful presentations today. Who has to come back to our next PDC that we can?
We anticipated, we were excited about the interest in all this. So
Yep.
we wanted to make sure we got your corridors presentation in.
Thank you.
We'll bring your major projects update back at your next PDC meeting, if that's all right.
That would be great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's
And is
nothing
that for both
time-sensitive there.
water resources? We get to see you all the time right now, Tim. It's great. Yeah, it's good stuff. Okay, so is that for both of the major project
Yes, ma'am.
updates?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
awesome.
And if you would like, if we have the economic development portion left, we can do that now, or we can, if you want us to, we can pick that up at the end, whichever. I can get through it in probably about 5 minutes. So,
Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that and then roll call.
okay,
That
great.
would be great. Thank you.
Great. Ms. Upshur sends her apologies. She is outselling our amazing city, so you've got to stand in for her piece. But the big piece in terms of economic development is what you know, right? That this is corridors about where public investment meets private investment. We talked about the level of investments we make in terms of public infrastructure. Vice Mayor, you asked about incentives. Incentives primarily come out of the Office of Economic Development. They're tools that we use to move private projects forward in places where we have public plans, where we have infrastructure investment, and our community priorities already point. The idea, as you certainly know, is we're an aging city. What we want to make sure is that we are turning over every opportunity to redevelop our older buildings, reuse vacant or underutilized sites, that we're creating opportunities for infill development, job creation, and making sure that we always have that eye on new. Most importantly, and this is the theme of the day, is the goal is not simply to support individual projects. It's really about building out the corridor over time. And you'll hear me when we wrap up talk about the way council often sees projects is they come in terms of the capital improvements program, they come in major project updates as individual projects, but these corridors have been thought out over years. They've been planned out all the way through, so it's bringing together that nexus. So on your screen is a list of these the geographic specific tools that we use. I won't read them to you. Certainly you've heard about these and there's an overview for each, but the top two are federal incentives, enterprise zones estate incentive, and the bottom three are local incentives. The picture of CloudFit is on the screen because even though it's an example of a development that used several tools together. It used HubZone, it used federal and state tax credits, enterprise zone incentives, and the real estate rehabilitation programs. And by layering this, it's what makes it possible to invest in these older buildings. And we've talked about that with the most recent property sales. The Physical Development Committee has certainly already seen enterprise zones in action. They are probably our most important corridor-based tool. That program is set by the state, and it encompasses, by design, multiple commercial corridors. Again, these are areas where we're already investing or have plans so that we're kind of aligning our city. So it's Ford Avenue, Campbell Avenue, Memorial Avenue, 5th Street, 12th Street, Main Street, Lakeside Drive, Langhorne Road, Kemper Street, Oddfellows, Graves Mill. You get the idea, all the major commercial investment areas. Enterprise zones focus primarily on job creation and real property investment. The great thing about this is it gives us flexibility because we don't have a lot of blank slate sites anymore. They're older buildings, they're existing older commercial areas, they're underutilized properties. This tool, when we layer it with our other incentives, gives us a great opportunity to align businesses around that support and allow that investment to follow. And again, you adjust these with some regularity. In advance of all that, all the work that goes on behind the scene is aligning the zoning, aligning the infrastructure projects, aligning our transportation network and our corridors to make sure that we are getting the biggest bang for our buck out of that incentive. The real estate infill program, that's an example of a local project, and it's really designed around developing difficult redevelopment sites, oldest areas of the city, areas that have established in place, and how do we look to redo that. So one of the things that does is it provides real estate tax exemptions for properties that are ongoing rehabilitation. And the idea is that we take the difference between the assessed value and the work that's ongoing, and we credit that against the existing renovation. In a built city like ours, we have to make better use of that land that we already have. And this is how we're encouraging the development of vacant and underutilized parcels. The three tiers of this that we do. And again, this is how we work closely with our assessor's office to make sure that we're guiding developers and folks who are doing reinvestment to make sure we're matching up that key with them. So let's see, this is 1208 Commerce Street. It's a great example. It was an underutilized property downtown, sat vacant for a tremendous period of time. It now is a new build. It has residential density, supports that downtown activity because it backs up to the Bluff Walk with commercial entity. It contributes to the tax base, of course, and it reinforces our value of prior public and investment that we've done in that area. So that's a very quick snapshot of economic development from a corridor standpoint. Really, when we're aligning the tools correctly, what happens is we get that private investment that helps our corridors become stronger, more active, and more economically productive. We appreciate the opportunity here. Again, it's different being able to talk about this on a global scale rather than just individual projects. One of the things that we want to make sure that we leave you with is that these are not just individual projects. They're part of larger coordinated plans. They're not only prioritized within the department, although they certainly are based on those needs, but across the city. They're centered on public outreach, not just conversations ahead of the construction, but across the corridor as a whole. And it's all about leveraging the greatest return on investment. And that's multiple funding streams like Mr. Newland does to make sure that the transportation investment's there. It's packaging together, like Mr. Mitchell talked about, to do as much work as possible to make sure that we're limiting future disruptions. And we're, most importantly, it's an eye on private investment. So hopefully that is what you wanted, and we're excited to share that with you. So.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate the presentations today. For the sake of time, is this committee comfortable if roll call is included in the work session, or do we want to do a quick roll call? Okay, then we'll do roll call.
Just one quick, any check on a lot of the dust accumulated on Buchanan Street and Pierce Street through the construction? A gentleman called me 2 times today. So if y'all could just kind of get back with me, I'd appreciate it before he calls me tomorrow. Thank you. And just want to thank the staff for all the presentations. Such an amazing job you're doing. So a lot of times people take your expertise for granted and the wealth of knowledge you bring to the table. So I really appreciate that. I'm always amazed at our staff for the past 10 years working with you all. It amazes me. And I really appreciate all the things you bring to this table. Thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for putting this together. Make sure you pass along our thank you to your staff, because I know this doesn't just automatically appear. It takes work. And I appreciate the work that you guys put into it. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, do you have any items for roll call? No. Okay. I'm going to rattle a list and I'll follow up with you, Kent.
Great.
Recycling. When I lived in San Diego, we had recycling bins everywhere and it went into the landfill. So yay, San Diego. But I'd love to know where our recycling goes and make sure that we're recycling. Data centers. I'm starting to see signs popping up about data centers. I see it when I travel for work, and I'm seeing it in Lynchburg. Would love an update on what's going on with that, with the EDA. We had talked about enterprise zones before. It was touched on in this presentation. Mm-hmm. Would love a greater discussion on that and some of those incentives and making sure that we have that understanding. Thank you all so much. I know it's a lot of people coming in today and a lot of people behind each of you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Our next meeting will be July 14th at 3 p.m. right here in the training room. Meeting adjourned.
Praise the Lord, everyone. Welcome to our City Council work session, June 9th, 2026. I turn you over to City Manager Winter Bender.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. This afternoon at your work session, you have a bid opening. There's a process, it's a legal process by which it's been advertised, and Matthew, together with the clerk, will walk you through the bid opening. There's usually a rhetoric that's shared back and forth as to what that looks like, and you probably remember it. Then our city clerk will, under business item briefings, will give you a quarterly report. And just so that you're aware, we've got your walking shoes on. We're going to then close out up here upstairs to go downstairs. Under work session agenda items, there's Ralph Tellis we employed several months ago to do a climate, culture, and hiring process assessment of our fire department. That's where I was earlier at 1 o'clock. We met together with the whole fire department, briefed them on it. Now this afternoon, they will do the same. And so that's, we don't know what the turnout might be, but to make sure that we are accommodating, because that's what City Council ensures and enjoys, we're going to move into chambers. And with that, Mayor, turn it back to you.
Ms. Finney?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is the milestone at Towers Line bid acceptance. As a result of an advertisement placed in the news in advance on May 19th and May 26th, I received one bid on June 3rd by Appalachian Power.
Yes, ma'am. Can you read the bid?
I sure can. It is a letter of commitment from Appalachian Power from Jake Patrick, Senior Right-of-Way Agent. It reads, please accept this letter of commitment on behalf of Appalachian Power Company as a bid being submitted pursuant to the invitation for bids and public hearing advertisement published in the news in advance regarding the grant and conveyance of a right-of-way and easement upon City of Lynchburg owned property located at 3525 John Capron Road, Lynchburg, Virginia. An original executed acceptance page of the proposed ordinance authorizing the grant and conveyance of such right of way and easement accompanies this letter of commitment.
Are there any other bids?
Doesn't look like there are.
Okay. There are no additional bids. I declare this bid closed. Is there any motion to accept this bid? Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion? No discussion? Let's vote. Yes, ma'am.
Are we able to vote on this in the work session without suspending the rules of procedure? I just don't know the specific nature of the.
Yes,
Okay.
it's one of our exceptions.
Okay, that's great. Just clarifying. Thank you.
And this is for a bid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
okay.
that's great. I just wanted to clarify the matter. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Reed?
Yes.
Councilmember Timmer?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deemer?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
The motion passes. A public hearing will be conducted tonight at 7 p.m. to hear from members of the public regarding the adoption of an ordinance granting this easement to the successful bidder.
Next item, business freedom. Business briefing. Boards and Commission Quarterly Report. Ms. Alicia.
Yes, sir. Back to me again. This is your quarterly reporting. This is Q2. This, of course, we do for the benefit of the public so that they can better understand time commitment and background alignment. It also gives you all some ample time to understand the needs of our boards and commissions. So here's our volunteer opportunities. These include July and August term expirations, as well as some outstanding vacancies. The first up is CVCC Board. This meets the third Wednesday quarterly at CVCC campus. They act in an advisory role to the college. Members can serve up to 2 consecutive 4-year terms, and we have 1 reappointment and 1 current vacancy. Next is the Historic Preservation Commission, or HPC. They meet third Monday monthly, 4 o'clock here in City Hall. The HPC enforces the city's historic district rules and helps property owners make appropriate changes to their historic buildings. Members can serve up to 3 consecutive 3-year terms, and there's 1 reappointment. Next is the Martin Luther King Jr. Lynchburg Community Council, or MLK LCC. They meet the third Tuesday at 5 o'clock at the library. They suggest suitable community events for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Members can serve up to 2 consecutive 3-year terms. We currently have 1 reappointment and a vacancy. Next is the Museum Advisory Board. They meet the second Wednesday every other month in the evenings. They help plan museum activities, guide museum programs within the budget, and work with the Museum Foundation on fundraising. Members can serve up to 3 consecutive 3-year terms, and you have 6 reappointment opportunities here. Next is the Economic Development Authority, or EDA. They meet the third Thursday here at City Hall in the morning. They support local industry and trade through financial assistance to new and existing industries. Members can serve up to 3 consecutive 4-year terms, and there are 2 reappointments on this board. Next, and this one is you have seen plenty of times, but is the Building Code Appeals Board. They meet as needed when they have an appeal ruling on a building or fire code. They can serve up to 3 consecutive 4-year terms, and we do have 7 vacancies. We are looking for specific backgrounds, so licensed architecture, licensed engineer, licensed Class A building contractor, licensed Class A electrical contractor, licensed Class A plumbing or mechanical contractor, experienced property manager. And if none of these backgrounds are suitable and you know somebody who is interested in building and fire code, please have them apply because we can take at-large citizens as well.
Thank you.
Our next steps, you are scheduled for a closed session on July 14th to make appointments to these boards. I'll be collecting applications and resumes through Friday, July 3rd. QR code gets you to our application. And as always, my contact information is in the bottom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 5, work session agenda item, Lynchburg Fire Department Climate, Culture, and Hiring Process Assessment. Mr. Patrick.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, sorry,
Yes.
This is where we have offered to take a recess, maybe a 15-minute recess
Yes.
to get downstairs and meet everybody there for the assessment.
Okay.
You
Thank
ready
you.
for it?
Yes, ma'am.
We're
Meeting adjourned.
recessed.
Downstairs. session for our work session meeting upstairs. Item number 5 on our session agenda is Lynchburg Fire Department Climate and Culture and Hiring Process Assessment. Mr. Greg Patrick.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. As you're aware, in late January, we contracted with Raftellus to complete an organizational climate, culture, hiring, and recruitment services assessment for our fire department. Today, the Raftellus team is here to present its findings and recommendations. With us today is Jonathan Ingram, Vice President with Raftellus and the project leader for our fire department climate and culture assessment. Jonathan brings more than 20 years of experience in local government and management consulting with a specialized focus in public safety organizations. He leads Raftellus's public safety assessment practice and has directed more than 200 fire, EMS, law enforcement, and emergency communications assessments across the country. His expertise includes organizational effectiveness, staffing, labor relations, and strategic planning, helping agencies identify strengths, address challenges, and improve service delivery. Also with us is Tom DeMint, Raftellus's subject matter expert for this assessment. Tom was the fire chief of the Padre Fire Authority in Colorado for 10 years and brings decades of fire and emergency services leadership experience to the assessment. Tom is the past president of the Colorado State Fire Chiefs and is widely recognized for his experience in fire service operations, leadership, accreditation, and strategic planning. His practical experience as a fire chief provided valuable insight as the team completed its evaluation of our department's culture, operations, and organizational effectiveness. With that, I'll turn it over to Jonathan.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. It's good to be with you today. Greg, the Deputy City Manager, gave us a strong introduction, so I won't regale you with our credentials, but I'll kind of jump into our goal and objectives for the conversation today. So as you all know, the city commissioned this study really to establish an honest, evidence-based assessment of the climate, culture, and hiring processes that have been deployed within the fire department, and to craft a specific actionable path forward that identifies the strengths of the department's culture and its service delivery model, but also provides a meaningful pathway toward improvement for the organization, not only for those folks who work within the department, but for those folks who rely upon those critical services in your community. One of the things that I really want to emphasize here is that this process is not an individual assessment. We did not go into the organization to assess individuals. Our goal is to look at the institution, what you all are tasked with, what your service level expectations are, what are the challenges in delivering those services, how do they impact the experience of the employee, and how do you attract and retain the best people to deliver this service, this really important service to the community. And that's really what our focus is. We're going to share our conclusions today, as well as the key engagement findings. We'll talk through some specifics with respect to our process. That way you all just have a good baseline understanding of how we went about the work and why the approach matters. And then we'll talk through our conclusions, what we view as the meaningful conclusions from the assessment that combine not only the critical feedback from many members of the staff, many members of your community, core stakeholders who have added value to the process as well, and a series of recommendations that we believe will not only capitalize on the strengths that the department has, of which there are many, but really position you all for success and set your new chief, who was just announced yesterday, I believe, with a really clear, actionable path forward that you all can put your shoulder behind. So, we mentioned the overall goal of the assessment was really twofold. So the first piece is really to look at climate and culture. So what does that mean? When we look at climate and culture within an organization, we really think of your number one resource, your number one asset as the people. Okay, and we have a process that's built off of best practices designed to assess the degree to which your employees feel engaged, feel connected to the mission, feel connected to each other, and feel supported by leadership in the delivery of the work. We have a very specific process that we apply to gather feedback and reach conclusions, recognizing that their perspectives, their individual perspectives, those individual perspectives also have to be tested against best practice and against best practice with respect to organizational management, personnel management, and fire and EMS service delivery. We were also asked to look very specifically at some process items, which are more in what I would call an organizational assessment category, where we looked at your hiring process, your promotion process. We looked at your recruitment and retention practices to really identify from a best practice framework, what are the meaningful changes that you all can make to bring in the best candidates, to keep the best folks, and make sure that the process is transparent, fair, and accountable. Okay. So our approach really included a number of sessions, three foundational categories of work. The first was a department-wide survey. So we built out a survey. We conducted about on February 11th through the 23rd. It was made available to all employees within the department. We had 172 responses, which is a 77% response rate, which I know it's inside baseball, but that's really good. So we were very happy. We got really good feedback from a broad strata of employees, multiple stations, multiple levels of the organization. So that really set us with a really strong baseline. We had about 96 questions in 10 categories, okay? So those questions cover everything from management practices, communication, accountability and discipline, supervisory relationships, peer relationships, and of course, connection with mission, right? Those are really important questions. And then we apply what's called a key driver analysis. So that is a statistical process whereby we look at each of the 96 questions and we create a statistical link between individual responses to individual questions and their overall sense of well-being within the department. In other words, it helps us say, of those 96 questions, what are the 10 or 15 things that this organization, that's most important to this organization and the people in this organization for you all to focus on? So it's a prioritization tool to help us really identify what's maybe noise in the survey versus what do we need to pay attention to for meaningful follow-up. But surveys are great. Their surveys are great. They're really rich information, but it's also really important to get the context of the conversation, okay? So the next major bucket of work for us was to conduct about 31 sessions in March of 2026. Tom and several of our colleagues spent several 12-hour days here on site interviewing, having one-on-one interviews with staff, having focus groups with staff, visiting each of the stations, and also having conversations with critical voices who are not within the department, so members of departmental leadership. We had the opportunity, both myself and Pam Weidman, who supported the search process for your new chief, to engage with many of you on council and gather your feedback as well. And we had conversations with some core stakeholder groups, including the Lynchburg NAACP, Progressive Firefighters Association, IAFF, as well as a focus group of fire department retirees. So folks who have left the organization, and there's absolutely no reason for them to be anything but truthful, right? So we had those conversations as well, gather their feedback. We then conducted a policy review. So in addition to gathering the feedback to really set a baseline, we looked very specifically at your kind of 4 core personnel lifecycle domains, including recruitment, hiring, promotion and development, and discipline. And we evaluated those processes within the framework of Society for Human Resource Management Professionals and Fire and EMS best practices. So we developed a series of recommendations in that framework that gives you, really meaningful process and policy changes that you all can apply to strengthen your process internally. So high level, it's not really that high level, fairly detailed. That was our general approach to the work. Now, I'll turn it over to Tom here in a moment to talk about our engagement theme. So we've really broken up the conversation into 2 fundamental buckets. First, we want to tell you what we heard. In other words, what were the key themes in the survey, or the key things in the focus groups and conversations that we had, independent of making a determination of whether those engagement themes or those were factual or not. The reality is their perspectives, their dominant perspectives and things that we heard, but it was a really, really important part of our process, and it helped inform and served as an underpinning element to each of the recommendations that we'll review with you in a few minutes. I've already hit this at a high level. This is just a kind of, again, an overview of our core stakeholder process and engagement summary. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tom to walk through each of the core engagement themes.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Again, my name is Tom Dement. I'm a retired fire chief and been with Raftellus doing this work for almost 5 years now. And first I want to say it was a very enjoyable time going to the stations and If someone wasn't on vacation, we talked to them. If they weren't on sick leave or whatever, we engaged every member of the department that we could possibly engage. And it was fun to be out in the firehouse again, because that's where it all happens. And that was quite enjoyable. So in our community engagement themes, we dovetailed that off the survey and then went out and asked the folks that are providing the service, the people that know what's happening out in the streets. They know what your customers are thinking. They know what your customers need. So we brought that back in this report. And part of the community engagement theme that was conducted by Emily Olselton and staff with her was with the community, with the NAACP, with the Progressive Firefighters. And one of the things that came back from them was the workforce matching up with the community. 7% of the workforce is Black, while Lynchburg's population is 27% Black. And the community stakeholders raised this gap as a trust and a representation issue, not just a workforce diversity issue. That was what they were feeding back to us as part of their community engagements, and that was part of their concern. Community engagement is very high in the survey that we did. And I'll tell you this, and I'll probably repeat this. Your firefighters are very engaged with the community. They are very, very, very dedicated to providing the service. Although, as we go through this, you'll see the bumps in the road they've been experiencing. They still put on the boots, put on the coat, and go provide the service. And with the inspiration of providing the best service they can, and they are providing a very high level of service to your community. The leadership theme, LFD direction and leadership. One of the things that came back from them that only 42% in the survey responded that they trusted the leadership of the upper parts of the organization. And only 52% believed that the department was moving in the right direction. They felt that the upper levels of the organization, for safety's sake, would avoid confrontation. There was a strengthened presence of battalion chiefs. There was an inconsistency. Some battalion chiefs were stronger than others, and that changed the work experience depending on what battalion you were assigned to. There was the factor of several interim positions because of changes in the upper structure, and no criticism to them, but that put them in a unique position to have 3 of the upper level of the department being in interim positions. So a key driver that we found is confidence in the leadership. And one of the things, this theme that we'll repeat again, is if the employees said, the firefighters, we don't even care if we don't agree with where the chief is going, as long as he's consistent and a strong leader, we will follow. We will follow that. And the inconsistency of the leadership at the top is what drove that. Management and accountability, the direct supervisors, the master firefighters and the captains, I would say that relationship between them and their firefighters is incredibly strong. The firefighters trust their leadership, the person sitting in the right seat of that fire engine, or that fire truck, or that ambulance, the person who's in charge, they have great trust in those people. So they do trust their first line supervisors. Again, there started to be a lack of consistency when we got to the battalion chief level for that. And that creates inconsistency and accountability. One of the themes that we found was that the leadership was for those of you, I think, Mr. Mistin, you're a paramedic, or okay, you understand AFib being irregularly irregular. Some of the inconsistencies were inconsistent. It was that was kind of the theme we talked with the advanced life support providers. Pardon me?
It's been like this for 10 years.
Okay. So one of the things that come from that is that discipline is applied differently depending on rank, battalion, station, that there is no consistency when discipline became necessary. Physical, emotional support and well-being. is another aspect that we discussed. 95% employees, like I said, love to serve. They give their best every day. However, there is some value, or there is a lack for some workers for physical, emotional, and mental support from their coworkers, that there is a discrepancy there. And the team relationships, again, are the biggest strength that your workforce enjoys. Sure. Employee engagement, like I said, they're dedicated. There is a huge desire for improvements. With the right leadership, which you appointed as chief, with the right leadership, they're ready to go. They're ready to have consistent leadership, strong leadership. That's how it works on a fire ground. Somebody takes charge, you say, this is where we're going to go. And that's what they're looking for in the organization. They value transparency and communication issues. When communications come, oftentimes a new policy could be developed, and it was inconsistently applied to the department. They had to go find it. They either found out about that through talking with someone at a shift change. Maybe it was somewhere in the software that the organization uses, or some of them even found those things on social media. So communications was found to be, we'll get to communications in a minute, is inconsistent and was not applied across the board in some formality to where the organization got to communication. In fact, only 38% believed that communication was effective. So the greatest part of the organization did not believe it was effective. Only 26% felt like they were involved in decisions that affect them. There's no written standards for communication policy to the department. Even more important, there's no crisis communication policy. You just drive up the road to Emmitsburg, Maryland. There's a great Emergency Management Institute at the National Fire Academy. It's a 2-week program for public safety crisis communication programs. And it costs a lunch ticket or the meal ticket. That takes us on to the hiring themes. And there needs to be ways to recruit people to broaden the candidate pool and increase diversity. So broadening the candidate pool is right now, because of staffing, a lot of the systems for conducting a recruitment is a job fair. What we believe is there can be more engaged, to understand the youth of the community, to understand young women, young men of different backgrounds, of different ethnicities, of different races, that a lot of them don't even understand that they have the ability to become a firefighter. It's a good paying job. You get to be part of the community. And there are several different programs that engage them to do that. Then there's the selection process. There's an inconsistency there as well. There's a policy that the hiring manager can remove someone from the hiring list after a committee has made a recommendation, or they can add someone. We're not recommending that you take that ability away from the hiring manager, but we're recommending that the hiring manager, that process, if they make that move, that is recorded and is substantiated by an independent review of that there is a policy for how it's done, so it creates transparency when someone is added to and say, I want this person into the list. There needs to be a transparency for that hiring manager to follow that. There's a desire for stronger candidate standards. Part of my belief, and it comes with an expense, but your incumbent firefighters have a physical fitness test every year that includes EKGs and a stress test and all that. And then you're finding that we heard, I won't say we found, we heard that there were candidates, recruits in the academy that were unable to meet the physical requirements or even had some kind of medical malady that occurred during the academy. If you can identify those up front, then you don't have that expense of having to backfill that person. So that same test could be happening. Again, it comes at an expense. That same test could be happening prior to the hiring of those folks that are coming on the department. There's a perception of unequal access to outside training. Please understand that the firefighters say we do get to go to outside training. There's conferences, there are specific itemized training, things like extrication or a new medical procedure. They do have that ability, but it's inconsistent of how you're selected. If you know the right person in the right place, you're probably going to get selected. That process needs to be formalized. Station transfers have been used in the past as an informal punishment. People are told they're going to get moved to another station, and they're moved to another station to get whatever purpose that is, but it circumvents the formal discipline process. There is a formal discipline process, and understand that the policy is changing in that regard, but the line has that perception. And there is an inconsistent formal personnel evaluation process. When someone goes for some captains are real good about applying it, some are not. For health and safety, the lack of confidence that the employees told us that there's a lack of confidence that if they have a personnel issue or something that they want brought forward, only 50% said that they felt secure that their complaint would be taken seriously and dealt with. And only for that same 50% only felt they did not, 54%, only 54% felt comfortable in taking a complaint forward, believing that it was going to go nowhere. Here's the key issue: heavy workload and burnout among paramedics. This is very key. Your paramedics are working extremely hard. There's very few of them. There is a process when they get off, when they work on the ambulance for a period of time, then they move on to the bigger apparatus, I call it Big Red. They move on to Big Red, but then they get bumped back in when a paramedic takes off. So you have a burnout issue. They're working incredibly hard. We talked to a lot of paramedics that are running 18, 20 calls a day. They're not getting to sleep. The other folks in those stations, though, this is the thing that's pretty incredible about your culture out on the line. We got to go find that med unit and take them their lunch. Or, hey, you've been getting pounded. One of the paramedics that's also working, you've been getting pounded. That call came in. I'm going to jump on the rig for you. I'll take a call. You take a blow. So it's a great culture out there, but we felt the burnout. We heard about the burnout. And that has ramifications not only in a high employee turnover, but issues of PTSD and other factors that are affecting paramedics globally, because this is not unique to Lynchburg. Paramedics are hard to come by now, so creative ways to run staffing and to find new recruits in that realm. There's an issue also in the stations of the facilities. Facilities we saw are in need of repair, and many facilities share bathrooms, that they don't have individual bathrooms where you have to coordinate. In fact, we ran into some stations where firefighters told us, well, I have to ask him if I can go and take my shower now, and it has to be shared back and forth. And that's something that is something that probably needs to be addressed so that there's that comfort, and that will help with your recruiting. It makes it a safer place, a more comfortable place to work. There are facility requests, such as we saw some issues with HVAC and some other things, that there were temporary fixes, but they remained temporary, and oftentimes those weren't working. So what did the firefighters tell us they were looking for in a new chief? And they were looking for someone, and you've got one that's coming, but what they're looking for is someone that has high standards, that promotes accountability, that is a leader, that is confident, that sets a direction and says, this is where we're going. Because that was a pretty common theme, is that firefighters told us that we want a chief that knows where he wants to take the organization. And even if we don't totally agree, if they inspire us and are consistent and provide that information, then they're ready to take that charge and go. So this is where we switch back.
So we've highlighted this to some degree, but I'll move to our kind of core strengths to build upon as well as areas for improvement, and this will underline some of our key conclusions as well. So, we've talked about the camaraderie among firefighters, among folks on the line. Talked about the supervisory employee relationships on the units. There's an incredible amount of strength, and the folks are deeply committed to the mission, right? So that is a really critical and fundamental piece. Is that connection to the why in terms of why folks show up is a meaningful strength to build upon. There are a couple of areas that we've built recommendations on. Ultimately, we've offered about 14 specific recommendations that are designed to help you all build on your strengths and advance forward. It falls under really two primary categories: leadership and management systems. So, what do we need to do to build the systems within the fire department to solve some of these perceptions of inconsistency specifically? And then the second section is really around process and procedure. But before we move into the specific recommendations, I want to bend the trajectory of the conversation a little bit from here's what we heard to here's what we believe our conclusions are. Okay, so we gathered a number of findings from folks, but I also want to level set what some of those findings really mean within the broader context of personnel management, fire, and EMS. Because I'll use communication as an example in a moment.
It's come to my attention the live stream hasn't been on for the nature of this discussion. I find this discussion really informative and very helpful, and there are a number of points that I have key questions about. Since we have time with the 7 o'clock, could we pause for a brief recess while we get that sorted in order to at least have the conclusions in the live stream and then have questions?
Facebook, and we just checked Facebook and Civic Clerk are currently on. So is it a different stream?
I can check. I've had multiple people text me saying that they haven't been able to. Is it working? Is it on?
Facebook.
Okay,
Facebook. Civic Clerk already. I can just check YouTube to see if that's the one as well.
Okay.
3 places.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate it. I've just gotten multiple texts, like I said. Okay, that's great. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Keep going?
Yep.
Good to go. All right. So our focus really is to share with you what we believe those key conclusions are. So the first key conclusion that I want you all to hang your hat on and really serve as the foundation is you all have a genuine and motivated workforce, and that is where the new chief really needs to start. 95% are determined to give their best every day. That's very high. 95% report really good working relationships with their peers. That's, when you talk about service delivery, that's meaningful. And 88% have strong trust in their direct supervisor. Okay. So that tells you that the folks who are on the apparatus have a strong work. And when you live in a house with someone, that tends to happen. Issues get resolved, right? So that proximity certainly matters. What I want to emphasize is that the organizational challenges that we are highlighting, they are real. They are institutional and process challenges, but they're very much manageable, and they're manageable because at every level of the organization, you really do have strong personnel that are both willing and eager to take on some of the improvement work. The transition to permanent leadership is the single most consequential near-term priority. So one of the realities is there has been significant leadership turnover. A number of folks have stepped into interim roles and provided really important leadership in a time of transition to the department. But it's also created a lot of ambiguity, which is a natural part of the process, and it has no bearing on the individuals who served in those roles. Really what the department is looking for is that clear direction. You all as a city have committed to a really strong process to bring good candidates before you. You selected a strong candidate. And that is really the first step, is really in this plan that we're developing for you is really a set of, really a 5-year, 10-year implementation plan that your chief can take on to really fundamentally improve the department and build on these incredible strengths. Communication is the department's most significant operational gap. Okay. And it's fundamentally linked to all matters of employee engagement in our key driver analysis. As Tom mentioned, about 38% of folks believe that overall the department communicates well. But here's what I want to emphasize, and I want to put the communication question into context. No matter what organization I go into, and no matter how well they communicate, there is always plenty of opportunity to get better at communication. It is always the most difficult thing that an organization can do. What we are advocating here is, one, to acknowledge there is a lot of good communication that takes place. There's some inconsistency in it, okay? Our focus is to move from pushing information to creating opportunities for engagement. All right, so communication is one thing, being able to push information via email, but what we're talking about is, okay, what are the pathways that are reasonable for folks to be involved in selecting apparatus that they're going to use, or folks to be involved in significant policy changes, to have feedback. When a chief or the leadership team makes a decision after that feedback, that the chief goes back and says, here's why I made that decision. I know it's not what you wanted, but here's what I do. So it's about closing that loop and having more of a two-way communication pathway. Many of our recommendations are based on building that framework. Really putting work here. This is just work. It's process. It's not, you're not buying a new piece of technology, right? You're not hiring a bunch of new folks to do this. This is just consistency and process and reinforcement. And what I will say is, when you're absolutely sick and tired of communicating, you're about halfway done. So it's a labor of love in every organization. One of our core conclusions, and this influences you all not just today, but well into the future, is the department really, culture really treats EMS as a supplementary activity. The data really shows that it's your primary function in the department. Fire suppression is critical. Those high risk, low frequency things are critical. You have to be equipped as a department to be able to effectively respond. But you have about 18,000 calls for service per year since 2016. About 83% of those calls are EMS. Okay, it's really the bulk of your workload. You don't have enough folks in the organization who have ALS certification who are assigned automated life support. And there are currently 6 ALS medic units across 3 shifts, which is structurally insufficient with the rotation system. So there's an operational challenge. And one of the things that we've ultimately recommended is, and we'll kind of talk about this in a moment, is both looking at that system and shifting the focus and structure of the department to prioritize EMS, and also conducting some evaluation of your shift alternatives. The hiring process has some challenges. There are some documented gaps in oversight and documentation. As we mentioned, about 29% of folks in the survey process agreed that the process attracts the most qualified candidates. One of the things that we heard in the focus group conversations in particular was that hiring decisions sometimes don't match up with the committees. Now, here's the thing. That's okay. So a hiring manager ultimately needs to be the one to make that decision, and ultimately the chief needs to have really clear roles and responsibilities. A committee's job is to conduct evaluation and to make recommendations. The chief or the hiring manager are going to have broader considerations, but there should be a really clear documentation in terms of what that process is. And this is really almost more about communication and engagement with those committees than anything. There are some elements where there's some non-structured, there's really no structured independent review of some of the non-standard selections. And panel member training can be improved fundamentally in terms of how you build the skill sets to be consistent. And we also want to make sure that hiring panel notes are retained for future practice. That's not currently the case. So we're making some recommendations around fundamentally improving that process as well. Again, process changes, policy changes, not necessarily meaningful investments. These are things the department can take on in the near term. The promotional process is more structured than many employees believe. But there are some documented gaps. So one of the things that we heard in both focus groups and interviews is some concern that the promotional process was unfair. What is working really well in the promotional process, so the master firefighter and captain promotions are currently managed by an outside consulting firm. The evaluations we've reviewed, they're structured, they're based on best practice criteria. Is a strong process. Okay, so and the panel members are receiving bias mitigation training, which is a really important part of the hiring process. There are some gaps. So right now, the fire chief can waive eligibility for any candidate with no documentation required. Eligibility changes were not really communicated department-wide. And there's really no standalone evaluation of leadership skills. And one of the things that we heard is that recruitment and promotion really needs, or promotion in particular, needs to have a stronger bearing, not just on technical skills, but on the ability to lead, right, as a primary criteria for promotion. So while it's a very low number, 37% believe that the process is fair. There are inconsistent, or there are many elements where the process is very well designed, but certainly there are some opportunities for improvement. The experience of women and non-white employees differs measurably from department-wide averages. Okay. So by about 15 points, there's about a 15-point gap overall, comparing non-white versus white respondents on subjects of employee engagement. And as we mentioned, about 7% of the department's workforces are persons of color, whereas about 25% of Lynchburg's population is. So one of the things that we will focus on from a recruitment perspective is how to build a recruitment program that creates really clear pathways to bring very strong, technically competent folks who also reflect back the community. There are, Tom mentioned this, multiple stations lack gender-specific bathrooms. So again, creating an environment where both men and women and persons of color feel both represented in the department and feel accountable to that department is a critical conclusion. Psychological safety within the department needs improvement. So, this is directly connected to accountability gaps and perceptions. So about 54% of folks feel comfortable sharing concerns without fear of retaliation. All right. About 56% are confident that the department would take a report of unfair treatment seriously. And so, creating a consistent pathway so that if there are issues, they can be elevated, that those issues are dealt with consistently and fairly. Now, one of the challenges is when you're in a personnel matter, you're in a discipline matter, it cannot be completely transparent, right? And that inevitably leads to some inconsistencies in perception, because there are things that you sometimes just can't share. But what you can do is make sure that the process is consistent. You can make sure that everyone is treated fairly within that process to be able to create some opportunities. So very, very well intentioned, but I think there's some opportunities for improvement in this category. There are a contradiction in the discipline policy that makes consistent application structurally impossible. So there's really two fundamental policy documents: disciplinary action documentation policy. So verbal warnings go in the supervisor's notes only; they are not in the employee's file. Whereas on the disciplinary action form, verbal and written warnings should be sent to the chief's office and placed in the personnel file. So there's just an inconsistency in the process, and that needs to be aligned with best practice just to resolve that. Again, that's a procedural change, relatively straightforward. But again, it's not just about changing the policy. It's about, here's the policy, let's communicate it, let's gather questions, here's why we're doing it. This is an opportunity to deploy different approaches to communication and engagement with a relatively minor policy change that will impact the organization, right? The department's recruitment approach right now is passive when it really needs to be strategic. So there's been a fundamental decrease in recent years in applicants and in your recruit profile. There's really not a formal recruitment strategy. There's limited outreach, because the bottom line is there's really limited capacity to do any outreach. There's really no organizational structure, staffing that's dedicated to this kind of work. The department has done a really good job with the limited resources that they've had. But the other kind of challenge is a lot of firefighters have historically come from surrounding volunteer departments or EMS only agency or personal referrals, right? So what we want to see are having essentially a recruitment process that's built more on best practice, where you are connecting with and accessing multiple voices in the community and creating multiple pathways. Okay, lots of best practices. There's lots of general public safety practices that apply to police, fire, and emergency communications. There's lots of specific things that are on the fire and EMS side as well, and we've built some recommendations in this vein. In order to do that, you have to have dedicated HR infrastructure. Okay, so there's about 200 full-time equivalent positions across 8 stations and 3 shifts. That's a complicated personnel environment, to say the least. So the city assigns an HR liaison. That HR liaison is responsible for multiple departments. The size of the department, the complexity of the department, we really are recommending dedicated human resources capacity at the command level as a starting point. To start to build out the program with particular emphasis on your recruitment program, squaring away some of these inconsistencies on the policy side. But this is really a starting point. You're going to end up with a larger personnel management contingent in the future. But again, it's a walk, crawl, run kind of recommendation, okay? One thing that I want to highlight that came up in multiple conversations is that city council engagement in operational and personnel matters is a documented governance concern. So you all know, you all operate under the council manager form of government. You've operated under that form of government since 1920. There are examples, a number of examples, where there is direct council engagement in personnel matters or operational matters. that has undermined the ability of the department to effectively deliver the work. So in particular, there is a culture whereby individual matters are sort of shopped around for the right decision. In order to make sure that the chain of command and the appropriate policies and processes function, that role and responsibility needs to be respected. So what we have ultimately recommended that there's a very clear process by which you as a body engage with the city manager as your primary appointee. The city manager, working with the fire chief, manages the day-to-day processes in the organization. Training and development access depends too heavily on the individual supervisor's initiative. Okay, so right now there's really no formal incumbent training program in the department. Training calendar is not really consistently available. And again, this is a resource issue. You have actually some really strong training in the organization. You have some captains, some shifts that do it really well. You have a really strong training group, but there's a lot of opportunity to really tighten up the training and to create a consistent expectation, a consistent program, and a consistent pathway, so that it's not necessarily about, okay, I have a captain who's really eager to make sure we get out and train. It's about, okay, here's what our training plan is. That training plan, by the way, is connected to a broader strategy. That strategy being, okay, where do we want to get stronger as an organization? Where do we have kind of low frequency, high risk incidents that we need to make sure we're training on? How do we make sure we're training across shift and across station, right? So it's being able to put some more energy behind that. And we've ultimately recommended an additional position to support building out that training program. Again, step one, you're likely looking at additional investments down the road. Station facilities, we've highlighted need sustained attention. You all have made an investment in stations. You know that this is the challenge. It's going to continue to come before you as a governing body, the investments that are needed in these stations. We really emphasize some of the gender bathroom issues, but there are HVAC issues, there's mechanical, electrical, and plumbing issues in stations, workout facilities that are in poor repair. So those are things that need to be prioritized with respect to the capital plan. More broadly, and this ties into the EMS recommendation as well, there's a need to look at your shift schedule. We're not making a recommendation in terms of what your shift schedule is. There are all kinds of alternatives that you can look at. Each of them has advantages and disadvantages relevant to your ability to deliver the service, your ability to recruit and retain, and your ability to create a healthy work-life balance for folks, especially those folks who are running 18, 19, 20 calls a day on a paramedic unit, right? We've made a recommendation to really look at your operational design around both shift schedule as well as your deployment practices to ensure that your EMS workload is given due consideration. In terms of our recommendations, I've really highlighted implicitly sort of what our core recommendations are. I'm not going to go through each one of them specifically here, but we've offered 14 recommendations. Now, someone asked me today, why 14? Aren't there any more that you could have offered? And our goal is, to give you all a meaningful path forward over a 5-year plan. What we have to understand is every single recommendation that we offer is a new project for your city, right? In addition to all the other work that you all are tasked with and that you're all wrestling with, okay? So our goal is to really build out, again, in leadership and management systems and employee lifecycle policies and procedures, recommendations that fundamentally change the trajectory on some of these core conclusions. One of the things that I'll mention is at the conclusion of this presentation, the full report will be made available online. Each of you can read it at your leisure. If you're having trouble sleeping at night, feel free to slide it under your pillow. There's nothing like survey data to really invigorate you. But there's plenty of opportunity to dig in a little bit deeper. Now, what I will spend a little bit of time on, however, is implementation and what's asked of you all as a governing body, okay? So whenever we walk away from this process, ultimately, we want to give your incoming chief, a really clear action plan in the first year. And we've articulated really a year one plan, kind of first 30 days, first 90 days, first 6 months, first year, okay? We've connected that with that individual's goals. What's really important for you all to understand is, the focus of the chief in the first 90 days is really around listening and getting to know the department. It's visiting stations. It's understanding the personalities that are in the room, the perspectives that are in the room. This report and this process it will allow your chief to fast track that. to develop a really strong baseline understanding of the organizational culture. But it's not a substitute for having the conversations and getting out of the departments. So our recommendations on the implementation plan are really built there. The 6-month process is really about solving some of these structural sort of process issues. Okay, so we want to create a very clear pathway. And then 12 months and beyond, it's about follow through, measuring, and sustaining. This is not a 1-year process. The recommendations that we've offered, typically we frame these sorts of things in 5-year implementation plans. This is likely a 5 to 10-year effort. If you're trying to fundamentally change a culture or improve a culture in a meaningful way, it requires 5 sustained years of energy to start to see meaningful improvement. So it's not a light switch that you're going to flip. But we have built out an implementation plan in particular. This implementation plan is really designed so that your chief and your city manager have a document that they can use and take and make their own. Conditions are going to change. Next year, you may face a whole new series of operational challenges, whole new series of community challenges or funding challenges. You all are going to, as a department, are going to have to prioritize that. Your task as a governing body is to help execute the policy and vision and to make sure that the resources are available to pull it off. It's a very tough job. There's lots of, there's always $20 in need for every $10 you have, right? So I certainly respect that challenge going forward. But again, we've laid out a specific implementation plan. The key thing I want you all to know is the chief's not going to come to you in 6 months and say, hey, we're done. This is going to take some time. It's going to require multiple budget cycles, multiple policy conversations, and really a fundamental shift in both the design of the organization as well as the culture. Now, what I will kind of close on before I open it up to any questions is I really do want to emphasize the starting strength of the department. We've said some difficult things today and really identified a number of opportunities for improvement. But really what this represents is a clear, actionable path forward to strengthen the department. And if there have been some public incidents, some things that have not been the proudest moment for the department, not been the proudest moment for the city, this is an opportunity to draw a line through that and to move forward from this point. And that's really the spirit that we've reflected in the analysis and recommendations to really give your well-deserving employees and your community the best department possible. With that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Any questions? Mr. Mission?
I appreciate what you guys have offered today, and this was really a robust presentation. It's very clear that you guys actually got in and dug in and did the analysis and the assessment that you were commissioned to do, and I appreciate that. I look forward to reviewing the whole report, and I can just tell you from my own personal experience, it looks like you guys were spot on with a lot of what you provided, and I just really appreciate the efforts you put in, and thank you so much.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor. I do just want to circle back because I had interrupted. Is the Lynchburg Live link back up?
So LTV, I'm not sure why the Watch Live is down.
Okay.
We do have 3 other ways to watch it, which are YouTube, Civic Plus, which is the meeting minutes. So the meeting minutes have been constant.
Yeah.
And Facebook Live.
Okay.
And all of those are up. I'm literally
That's
toggling back and forth.
great. No, thank you. I know that there are a lot of avenues and it can create confusion. I appreciate that. And then you all had mentioned that the full presentation, there are a number of percentages that you identified specifically on the engagement themes page that I found really significant when it came to the issues of consistency in higher leadership. Are those percentages part of the conclusive report that you're posting online? Okay. Because I didn't see that in the slides and that was really informative and I greatly appreciate that. The 3 main issues that I heard really had to do with and my brain's going 3 different directions. First, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much for the conscientiousness in which you dealt with boots on the ground. I've had interactions as a council member and personal interactions with our boots on the ground, and they truly are phenomenal and greatly appreciate our men and women in the fire department. The 3 kind of highlight or big theme issues that I felt or that I heard that we need to look at addressing are really the transparency piece, specifically in communication, the consistency element when it comes to discipline and higher leadership, and then the facilities component. I would welcome any feedback if there's something that I missed, and I have questions about ALS equipment and then shift schedule. Is there a key theme that I've missed in those kind of
No, I think we've identified a number of really important
Right.
themes, and how they sequence is ultimately a decision that your city manager and your chief are going to have to wrestle with in terms of laying out, all right, what's step one, what's step two, what's step three. What you've identified are a couple of things that you can immediately start making improvements on. Right. So when you talk about communication, you talk about transparency and policy changes, those are attainable. Those are things that you can put your back into, and those are things that you can use as a mechanism to strengthen communication, sort of one topic at a time. The station investments are a broader, longer term conversation, right? When you talk about facilities, fire stations are not cheap, as you all know. You're dealing with one right now, right? And they're only getting more and more expensive. So, building out a long-term capital plan that effectively funds those is a broader funding challenge that you have to balance with all the other infrastructure needs that you have. But there are also, I think, opportunities to say, okay, where are there places within the department short of a full remodel or retrofit where we can sort of strategically invest to make the experience in the stations better? So,
yeah, thank you. Did you all touch on the ALS equipment and the life and longevity of those in the context of the grid report?
We didn't have a lot of discussions about ALS equipment. We talked to medical director. We talked to all EMS supervisors.
Okay.
If I could address one thing that I probably should have hit a little harder in my presentation was on the EMS side, when we talk about it being 83% of what you do.
Yep.
But yet in the current structure, the EMS chief is 2 levels below the chief.
Right.
And so if we were running a business and we were the board of directors of the business and 83% of our business was this one kind of widget, we probably have somebody that's answering directly to the boss about doing that. Making sure that, and that's part of won't say it is the solution, but it's a way to ferret out solutions to the burnout, the overwork and stuff, is someone who is well versed in that can provide that direct feedback to the chief. So no, we didn't get into equipment.
What I'll say about fun mic shuffle. So this is really climate and culture. In other words, it's employee experience, and then the assessment piece was really specific on your hiring and recruitment promotion processes, right? So that's really our focus. If this were an organizational assessment, which is what I would call a deep dive into the organization's kind of process, policy, staffing, deployment, we would have looked at your equipment, but that just wasn't part of the scope, just in terms of understanding the employee experience.
Okay, that's really resourceful.
Sure.
Thank you. And then you touched on shift schedule. Could you just kind of highlight those themes again? Because as I've had discussions, these are some of the areas that I've heard about, and I just welcome your input.
We did the dance again. That was, apparently there are a lot of EMS agencies in the region that have gone to a 42-hour week, I believe it is, versus the 56-hour week. Currently, you're on a 56-hour week with the 24/48. There's not what is known in the service as a Kelly day, which is a day that's in that schedule that you just don't work. That's an additional day off. But there's a lot of interest in the 24/72, and that needs a lot of in-depth research on the cost of that,
Right.
the ramifications. And there also, there's with the new chief, and there's an impetus to look at, and again, wasn't part of our scope, but to look at alternative staffing. It's particularly on the EMS side. When you go for 24 hours and you're running, most of those kids are running 24 hours, and I'm old enough, I call them kids. But most of those kids are running calls for 24 hours, getting little breaks. So that's for the chief to start looking in that direction. But it's just putting that importance on the EMS component of what you're delivering. And still, that's the only agency in town that says fire on the door. So when those other things happen, that's the fire department related, you still have to keep those sets and reps and those skills proficient as well.
Yeah.
For that low frequency, as Jonathan said, that high risk, low frequency event.
One of the things that I'll just add on the shift schedule is, so the alternative, I think that's preferred, there may be preferred, or at least named, because other departments within the area are implementing it. Okay, that's one option. There are many options to look at.
Right.
Each one of them is going to have different advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah.
Okay. Advantages from the perspective of, all right, how many staff do we need to actually pull this off and cover the days off? It's called a staffing factor. So when you have a 46-hour week compared to a 56-hour, you have to have more employees
Right.
staffed in order to just cover for normal leave. Right. So there's an impact there. Right. Other alternatives but it also might be really attractive from a recruitment and retention perspective. You may be able to get more folks in the door.
Yeah.
Right. So you really have to look at like the overall implications. Some are better for employee well-being. Some are better for cost. Some maybe can add value in both. You really have to look at your calls for service, look at your shift schedules. There's GIS analysis involved. It's a robust process to get a good answer.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was very helpful. I love all this information because our first responders, I mean, what do we do without them, right? I mean, it's the people that run towards the danger when everybody else is trying to get away. So I'm so grateful for our law enforcement and first responder community. So a couple things that stuck out to me. First of all, for sure, the overtime. I think when I got on council that year, our firefighters had done like 150,000 or something. I mean, something around there. Don't quote me because I'll get yelled at, but something like in this six-figure numbers of overtime that year, which is crazy. And we're dealing with obviously nothing that you don't know, but for our public, you're dealing with mental health risks, obviously, for what our first responders see. Our firefighters see, what the EMS sees. And one of the things that's come, as I've learned, because this is not my field of expertise by any means, when we're talking about the deficits of physicians and going, hey, we're getting closer to meeting the goal of being like, from double digits to single digits or whatever, as I've learned with the fire department, that's just to be like kind of level, but that's really not level because you have people out on training and leave and all the things. And so when I was first kind of learning the lingo, when like an engine was down, I thought, oh, why is it broken? That's what I thought it meant, and not understanding that we weren't staffed. The engines weren't staffed. Mm-hmm. And so, and I still had to, so when I would go to the fire stations and visit our teams and go, hey, what's going on? And they would explain to me, and they still explain a lot to me, is the numbers sound better, but we're still short. And still dealing with burnout and still dealing with overtime. And that's very concerning when we're having recruitment problems. We don't see the same number of people interested in serving in this way like we used to. When I was younger, everybody wanted to be a firefighter or a police officer or in some capacity serve the military, and we just don't see that. I don't know if that's nationwide, if we're seeing recruitment issues in the fire department nationwide. Can you speak to that? Yes, you're saying yes. So two things. One is, yes, overtime is very concerning. And so what I'm hearing, my concern is the mental well-being of those that are serving in this capacity, but finances, because we need more people so that we can cut down on the overtime, but creative ways to do that and also have the money to do it is all of us working together, right? Mm-hmm. Recruiting to be able to fill these positions, because we've been kind of at a stack. We're always trying to get people to come in, but we have people retiring at the same time. So you're kind of on that constant cycle of people retiring, people applying, and then qualifying, because not everybody can do this job. Not everybody makes the cut. So those are concerns. And then with the diversity piece of hiring. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So let's speak to that for a second. So you have this now desire to meet, what our community looks like. So you, can you speak to kind of how you would do that? Because we're having a hard time recruiting anybody to come serve in this way. And now you're going to kind of target a broader view of what we're bringing in to serve and to work in the department. So what is that going to look like?
So, as I said in my presentation briefly, is that it's more than just a job fair.
Right.
Going and handing out brochures. It's getting into, you got a community college, you got a university,
right.
You've got paramedic schools, you've got EMT schools, even more so, you have high schools and junior highs.
Right.
And and young men and women who are thinking about what am I going to be when I grow up? What am I going to do with my life? To learn that they can give back to the community, that do something that's very physical,
Right.
athletic,
Mhm.
get to work in a team environment. You start showing them that at an early age. And where I come from, we had some great success with fire camps and that kind of recruitment. Sometimes that success we didn't realize. It didn't go to our department. It might have went someplace else. Or in some cases, it went to the Air Force Academy, went to West Point, because those were interacting with the school, saying, who are these kids that would fit?
Mhm.
And that way you get people who never thought that being in the fire service would be, I mean, you see fire departments with military academy graduates that are
Right.
firefighters now. You see attorneys and even physicians that say, I want to do that, I want to serve the community. So that's what's been successful nationally, is being active and making it open to the community, opening it up to the community so you can teach that.
Right.
That would be.
Okay, and then the other thing, thank you. And I think the other thing, and I don't know, I mean, you know, a lot of this, the process piece obviously is going to come down to the new chief. You know, that's going to be him now looking at all this feedback and going, okay, probably getting processes in place, really. And I think this is really going to be a great starting place for him to see this feedback. And that's going to be him. But it's also prioritizing, because a lot of this is money. I mean, a lot of it is. And so what's the priority? Is it the positions? You know, it's recruiting, but also adding positions so we can address some of those crucial pieces for, like I said, you know, the well-being of the firefighters, so that they're feeling taken care of, so they can do the best job they can, right? And then obviously facilities are crucial too, but it's prioritizing, because as you said, this is going to be a kind of a long-term plan for us to be able to fund it. But, you know, if we had money writing down, we would say do it all now, because it is that important. So I appreciate the feedback. It's a lot for all of us to work through and discuss, and us to prioritize. But I imagine there'll be a conversation with the new chief and all of us on how to roll this out. But thank you.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate that. I'm excited about our future, of what's going to happen in our city for our fire department. So I'm looking at EMS. So I'm excited about that. I thank you for the recommendation. I think it was like 17 or whatever the number was. So I'm looking forward to really kind of see it. So I'm looking forward to reading the report and seeing where we go from here, what the recommendations, and just kind of deep diving into those and see what our new chief, what his plans are as far as addressing those recommendations. So if there's some kind of I guess we have a discussion about like a follow-up session of some sort, whether we can meet with individually together with the fire chief, or individually small group sessions, or whatever you think is more effective. I would love to do that. Also with different groups, like the progressive firefighters and those that have some interest in this part as well, just so we can hear what some of the other partners, also the fire department, the association, just hear what some of those partners are saying, just so we can all be on the same page and work this thing together, because we have some challenges over the next couple of years. So I want to make sure we get this right as we going forward, moving forward. So I'm looking forward to being a part of that process. And also about the repairs. I know you went really into the equipment and things like that, but you mentioned briefly about the repairs of the buildings and things of that nature. I know like for school systems, they have like a certain time plan and outline for school construction and things like that. So do we have something similar to city manager at some point? Do we have something similar for the fire departments? Like we're going to do this year, that this year. I know it's probably in our CIP plan or whatever, but just so I can just make sure I understand that maybe even a little better, to make sure that the fire staff knows it as well, what that plan is going forward. We're going to address this, because we don't have anything. We were in our session earlier today about the development committee, but the PDC, whatever, committee earlier. And I think for the sewer needs, of like $100 million. You know, sometimes people that still don't understand all of that. They say, why are taxes so high? Why do you need this? We have sewer needs of not just one need, of over $100 million. So we just don't have all the resources and finance we need to do everything. That's why there's so many funds needed to run a city. So I'm just looking forward to the next conversation, where we go from here, and meeting our new police chief. And also, and the last piece, I love like the fire camp. You mentioned a fire camp or something where we're going into our schools and say we're going to do a camp this week. Like we're doing our kids at Jubilee, going to a welding camp at CVCC, just because we need more welders in our community, because they're high paying jobs, give them that excitement about it at a young age. And can we do something similar with our fire department, our EMS? Like in the counties, they have a lot of volunteer fire departments where people can get into. Do we have some of the opportunities here in Lynchburg for things like that? How can we think outside the box and go into their areas where representation in our fire department is not really represented, that doesn't reflect the population of our community, of our citizens? So how are we going to address that? So I'm looking forward to hearing the new chief and seeing what his ideas are. And what's his time period? I know it's a lot at once, so just some time to hear what he has to say. Yes, sir.
Dr. Butler, just to the great points on you saw that in the, how did you put it, your spreadsheet, your Excel spreadsheet. You saw in the first 90 days what was proposed was a listening. And so important for Brad and I is to ensure, and you seven are going to be critical in all of that, to come and meet with each one of you individually to talk through what you've heard, what you understand, and kind of hear from him also where we're headed. And that also be kind of replicated throughout you heard how important it is to get each of the different fire stations and the different shifts. So there'll be a plan that we put together that will be made available so that you'll know. Spoiler alert, you saw in there's two proposals, one for an HR, an FTE for HR, and one for training. Something we'd ask the council to consider is that rather than wait till fiscal year 28 and to ensure that Chief Creasy and the team are hitting the ground literally, running with all capabilities, I would propose, and I'll bring this forward at an appropriate time for council to consider, looking at amending our fiscal year 27 budget. We would provide you options about how to fund those positions because you heard how critical they are and how it can help our fire department. So to meet some of your, what you were talking about, Dr. Weil, as far as timing, and just to understand, I think it was in the release, Chief Creasy's first day is July 1, and from there, we'll go forward.
I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are very thankful for the obvious hard work that you've done to present this to us and the recommendations. Look forward to going through them in detail after this is over with. I have appreciated the efforts, and they were certainly needed. One of the greatest thing, and you probably heard it from several of our my colleagues up here today, is the communications that we have directly with the members of our fire department. We value those. We want to continue to keep that openness to the members, whether they're police or fire or EMS. We want to make sure that they are able to approach us and not feel that they aren't able to do so. And I looked at your recommendation number 5, define appropriate channels for city council engagement with the department. And obviously I've got a personal interest in that one. I want to keep that going. I walk Sophie around the block, and I have firemen that come out and talk to me, and I don't want them to feel like they can't do that. I've got policemen that come out and talk to me. Clearly my colleagues have referenced several conversations that they've had with directly with firemen. And I want to make sure the firemen of Lynchburg know that they are welcome to come talk to us and to feel that they can do so in confidence. A lot of the reason you're here is because they did just that. So that hasn't always been the case. And I came to your very first meeting that y'all had where you defined the scope of what you were going to do. And I was asked to leave. I was there at the request of a fireman, and I was sitting in the back just in a listening role. I'm not there officially. Of course, it's when a councilman shows up, people notice. But I was invited by the fireman, and I was there to listen, and I wanted to hear it. And I found out that the scope had changed a little bit from how it left us. So it was important for me to be there, and I'm glad it changed back to the original scope that was publicly talked about. And I don't think we should be asking the people's representatives to leave when they've been invited by our firemen. That was very eye-opening to me to be asked to leave a meeting, and I didn't leave. I stayed. It'd been nice and easy for me to walk out and say, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't be here." But they should have the same access to me that the next door neighbor does. So they shouldn't have less. They should have exactly the same access to their elected representatives that the neighbor next door has, and they should not be able to not talk to me simply because they are a fireman and work for the city. If anything, I listen to them more because these are the guys running into the buildings. for us to save our lives. And if that doesn't deserve a listening ear from the elected representatives, I don't know what does. So I appreciate your work. I'm thankful for what you do. The devil's in the details, and I look forward to some improved culture in our fire department, and maybe it'll spread across the city, because transparency is very important. Listening to everybody is very important, and I'm going to try to do that going forward and continue to do that, because transparency is one of my key principles of government. Government that's transparent is better government. So, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Mr. Manager.
I'm Mr. Vice Mayor. I don't know all the details of that particular, and I know that you guys ferreted out this point, so it'd be better for you to follow up. But I want to ensure, put a fine point, there's no restriction I'm putting on any one of you to stop talking to any of our different firefighters. Where I think it becomes problematic is when what you heard from the bullet point, maybe you should flesh that out, is that when it becomes if they haven't gotten the answer, because it's one thing to have a conversation, right? It's a whole other thing to have or get into what becomes my process, right? Because I'm called on to run the organization. And what I think maybe ferreted out, maybe you should reference is, it isn't necessarily your presence per se, right? It's the chilling effect it has on their ability to feel like that they can communicate freely and openly. Because, and I've said this to each one of you, you carry such an importance in what you do that when you send an email, when you make a phone call, when you take or do something with each one of our employees, they're immediately responsive. So they're very careful with that. So one of the things that came away from your having participated there, albeit invited, was a feeling that they couldn't necessarily speak open and freely. And that's when some of the people who were there left out because of your presence there. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew the other side of what was there.
Can I address that? Because I know that you asked for me to be removed from that meeting, and it happened at the beginning of the meeting. And I was invited by multiple people, members of the fire department, personally, to be there. I was trying to listen, purely. I got no feedback from any of the people in the room that my presence made anybody feel uncomfortable. But apparently I made you feel uncomfortable. So you were asking for me to leave. I don't think that's appropriate. And I would, again, stay if you asked me to leave again. Nobody left that room that I saw. That direction came directly from you to have me removed. And I'm glad I stayed.
So one of the things that is important to articulate is the nature of your form of government as the council manager form of government, the nature of the employment relationship of firefighters. The nature of their experience here is that of employee. It is not that of constituent. And that is a fundamentally important distinction, and it is fundamentally important within a paramilitary organization in particular, that chain of command be acknowledged, that there's a clear expectation of accountability. And it is not the purview of an individual firefighter to invite anyone to a meeting that's ultimately led by the department. While I'm not having a conversation or debating the circumstance of that moment, what is really critical is that established processes that are led by the city manager and fundamentally by the fire chief have the opportunity to work, and that there are not a number of circumvented opportunities to do an end around those critical processes. Because ultimately, the day-to-day responsibility of that department flows through the fire chief, through the city manager. The city manager flows to you all. That's the nature of the governing relationship, right? And that is how it can be most effective. What is critical and the underlying sort of framing of our recommendation, you all as a governing body have every right to have a really strong understanding of what's going on within each of your departments, right? To have a sense of how that connects to your strategy and your policy goals. And for your city manager to be accountable to that, right? That relationship needs to exist. Direction needs to come from the body, not from individuals, right? It's you all as a body that gives direction to the city manager in this form of government, and then the fire chief, as their appointee, ultimately executes your policy in the practical application of their duties. So that's fundamentally a distinction that we really need to make and reinforce. And I will say the theme did come up in our conversations. It was a consistent issue and concern within folks of the department.
Mr. Mitchell.
Did you have something related to this conversation? I did. If you would let her wrap this up, because what I have is just a simple question that is completely unrelated to all this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your addressing that. One of the things that I very much valued in the context of this presentation, and I want to tie it into Mr. Deemer's concerns, is the emphasis on accountability, transparency, and clear jurisdiction. As far as how that operates from an organizational standpoint, it's critical and it's huge. The concern that I believe Mr. Deemer is addressing, and I very much share, is the curated nature of information that we receive as council members. For example, department heads not being able to speak to us directly unless information is pre-curated or approved through the city manager's office. That's a current policy that's in place. We don't have access to this information unless people have the ability to come and speak to us freely, really in the context of whistleblower protections. And so some of the division that I believe we're seeing in the context of the fire department and some of the other departments as individuals are coming forward is really this concern of retaliatory action if they speak out against various concerns. And that's a leadership structure issue. So as a council member who appoints and is involved in some of these higher structural elements, that is a concern of mine and is very much spoken to in the nature of this report, as well as kind of a larger pattern as a whole that unfortunately you stepped into the middle of. So thank you so much for addressing the need for transparency and communication, those accountability components, and again, very much respect and value jurisdictional boundaries. But if the transparency is broken down, it's our purview to have a level of oversight. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One quick question. When we were talking about recruitment and you're talking about reaching, different populations, all of those things, trying to get, I know one of the things that came up in there, and you can probably quote it better than I can, but about the quality of the recruits, there was a mention of that. Would it benefit our recruitment to look at moving towards a veterans preference in public safety? We may have to do it across the city in general. I'm not sure, but you guys have this experience across the country. I feel like with looking at these things, and
there are a lot of
what's the difference between, because in Virginia, we can adopt a veterans preference policy as a locality. We don't have one here in Lynchburg. And I'm just wondering, how would that, in your experience, your opinion, how do you feel like that would be positive towards our goal to get qualified people to run in burning buildings and save people's lives?
And it's being used in a lot of departments aggressively, because you've got someone who already knows working in a team, working in a physical environment. It gives you the diversity that you're looking for in recruitment, because that's part of what we're trying to do. So without, I have to look at the city attorney and, you can say that Virginia is good with it. But there's still from experience, there's still with preferences, there's still background checks and stuff that have to be done.
Sure.
You don't just hire because you're a veteran, you're going to get hired, but you can have all the way from people from infantry, and it just gives you a well-versed workforce. So it is absolutely a recruitment tool.
So you can absolutely create veterans preferences. It's available to you. As Tom mentioned, there's lots of organizations that do it. What we have to also be careful with is not creating a recruitment structure that essentially makes it impossible for anyone who doesn't have that veteran experience to be able to access and enter the organization. So when you look at building veteran preference points and treating that as a pathway, that's a really good, there's a strong policy reason to do that. There's lots of practical reasons to do that. Yes, and we also want to make sure that we are incentivizing and creative pathways for folks who are within your community, who are in junior high and high school and have access and have the opportunity to get to know the department. I'll use, I hate to quote a police department program, but the Police Explorers is an example. It's a national program that police departments often use. It's kind of Boys and Girl Scouts, but you get to spend time helping out at a police station. Programs like that, there are examples on the fire and EMS side as well to kind of give folks access and potentially create a pathway for recruitment. So yes, veterans, but just let's be careful not to make it exclusionary in favor of just kind of targeting one particular pathway. So there's a balance there you have to strike.
Yeah, and I don't think we'd be able to do that because from what I understand, I think that any veterans preference policy that we would adopt, I guess as a locality, I think it mirrors the state policy. Is that right? And if you look at the state, I don't think the majority of state employees are veterans. So I think it's just, it would be a tool to maybe, if you've got, this group of people that apply, and what it sounded to me like you found is that there's been some situations where the quality of the recruits that were hired weren't necessarily what people would expect. If you could, if you had veterans, I actually know people who didn't get the job who were veterans that would have been great hires over the years. They would have been phenomenal employees. And then you look at some of the comparisons of the people that did get hired versus the people that didn't. It just makes me kind of wonder if creating that edge would kind of produce a better end result. And I believe also the employable veteran population, right? The age group of veterans that would be seeking these jobs is actually more diverse than our community is. So there's more minorities in that segment of the population than there is in our community as far as a percentage is concerned. So it would also help kind of achieve that.
Sure.
The goal to, it would help that because you're then targeting a more diverse recruitment pool. And then something else, and I don't know if you guys have dealt with this at all, but what about eliminating written tests and replacing them with oral boards?
So
is that something that you guys have experience with? Because I've sat through some training workshops before where they talked about how that is an incredible tool to actually find the best candidates and creates a more naturally diverse set of candidates because you take that written test piece out of it, but you also get to evaluate the person and not just their answers on a piece of paper. Is that something that you guys have seen?
You can create opportunities for both. There are advantages and disadvantages to oral as well. There's biases that can flow into that process as well that you have to very specifically manage against. So it's not again, every single policy, every single procedure that you establish is going to have advantages and disadvantages. We would say we wouldn't want to exclude any option for consideration from your chief and your new HR director.
Got it. I just wanted to put those as options on the record.
I appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you again for the presentation. I just want to make one clarifying point. I've served on the school board for 9 years. I've been on city council for 10 years. I appreciate working with the management on both sides of our aisle, as far as schools or whether the city council here. One thing I have appreciated, even in my time on the Housing Authority Board, I went to a meeting where they're doing a development project where there was no residents there. And I'm like, where are the residents? They said, oh, that's a separate meeting. So I understand you have a separate meeting for different pockets of the population so their concerns, so their voices can be heard, so they can share clearly a population for teachers, population for parents, population for the community. So I understand the process and I appreciate the process. So I appreciate the staff members, whether it's the school staff or the city staff, I appreciate the process that they have structured for our community to be stronger. And where we as citizens and people and servants, where we can understand the process and say, well, I trust you in this process. In my 9 years on school board, our teams on city council, I've always felt like I had access to department heads or leaders. I go to different events. I go to that event. I go to this town sharing events. I go to this school for a tour. I go to this place for a tour. When there's groundbreakings here, I make sure I'm visible. I make sure I'm there, speaking for myself, not for others, speaking for myself. So make myself available. I have access. I can hear their concerns. I can hear what they have to say. No one has ever cut me off from my point of view and listen to the people or listen to their concerns. Because nowadays, my gosh, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's emails. Everybody has access nowadays to you. I get calls on my job continuously about somebody's trash. So they have access to us, but I appreciate the process and I appreciate the different structures that was segmented populations. So all their concerns, valid concerns are heard. You may have this concern, you may have this concern. I may not have thought about that from a resident living in this population for a housing authority. So it's important that we hear all the concerns of all the people in the different populations. Thank you.
Mr. Ferrari, you have anything?
Thank you. It was very informative. And I'm looking forward to seeing some implementation of what you've introduced.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, is the Vice Mayor Deemer's item for LU enrollment.
Mr. Deemer?
Thank you. The issue isn't really enrollment at Liberty. It's always been about the information that the city staff gave out to the public. And this resolution mirrors the resolutions that were combined and passed at the last meeting. It's affirming the city's commitment to truth and transparency, a word we've heard a lot about tonight, and accurate public disclosure regarding information communicating in regards to the series 2026 general obligation bonds. That's the title of my resolution. There's nothing about Liberty in that. But just in case people have forgotten what we discussed and passed last time, I'll read it again. Whereas the city of Lynchburg recognizes the importance of maintaining public confidence through accurate, transparent, and responsible government communications, particularly in matters involving public finance and municipal bond process. And whereas during presentations and communications associated with the city series 2026 general obligation bond process, certain projections and related information concerning anticipated population growth trends were communicated to credit rating agencies and later referenced in public reporting connected to the bond process. And whereas the subsequent concerns were raised regarding the sourcing, verification, and accuracy of portions of that information, and whereas maintaining public trust requires the city to respond directly and responsibly whenever inaccurate, unsupported, and insufficiently verified information may have been communicated to both the taxpayers, investors, financial stakeholders, and the public. And whereas Lynchburg City Council believes, I believe we all believe, in the principles of truth, transparency, accountability, and integrity that must guide all our public communications and our financial disclosures, especially, and the practices of the city. Be it resolved that the City Council and the City of Lynchburg, Virginia, and the City Manager, appropriate staff are hereby directed to review all relevant public communications, presentations, reports, and materials associated with the Series 2026 bond process for accuracy and completeness. Be it further resolved that the City Manager shall ensure that all necessary factual corrections, clarifications, or updated information are communicated in an appropriate manner to parties that have reasonably relied on our information being correct, including Lynchburg citizens. Be it further resolved that the city shall take reasonable and appropriate steps to strengthen internal reviews and verification procedures related to future public disclosures, financial presentations, and external communications. And be it finally resolved that the Lynchburg City Council reaffirms our commitment, colleagues, to honest government, accurate public disclosures, fiscal integrity, and the preservation of public confidence in our city's communications and decision-making processes. So I know that this has already passed, but I understand that there may be an attempt to unpass it, but I still think it's a good thing. Truth, transparency, honest government, public disclosure, fiscal integrity. Somebody's going to have to explain to me why those good things don't need to go forward, and we don't need to make sure, doubly sure, of what we communicated to people and make sure it's right. And since the inaccurate word was used by one of our staff members, not by us, we need to make sure that there are policies in place to make sure that we're accurate in our communications going forward. It doesn't seem unreasonable. Seems pretty common sense. It's not to blame anybody or to defame anybody or to in any way put any pressure on any staff other than let's just fix what we got out there that wasn't quite accurate. And that's what my resolution was about. So I did want to discuss it in work session, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. And I'll yield back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? No? Roll call. Mr. Ferrari?
Thank you, Mayor. I've emailed staff a few things related to just constituent problems. I wanted to raise them here. First and foremost is Taylor Road. There's been the first road has been repaved in Richland Hills related to that sewer project. And at first I'm driving on it when I went to go out there and take a look. And I was like, I don't know, it's pretty darn smooth. What's the problem? There seems to be just like really high peak, and so much so that I noticed it in my car, and I just wanted the staff to address that. So thank you for, I know I've already sent you that, but thank you for looking into it and wanted to reflect the concerns that were shared with me here. Second to that, I believe I also sent you guys this as related to parking downtown. Not sure the last time we've looked at how we're doing parking, and with the implementation of the amphitheater, the waterfront, the riverfront, just might be worth scheduling out, even if it's a few months out, where we are, what's working, what's not working, do we need to do any adjustments there? Richland Hills fired back again, and I also sent this in. There seems to be a question mark on an announcement from Centra, so I know this might be some partnership communications with them, potentially about their expanding a medical facility off of Logan's Landing, and that's going to be probably behind Richland Hills, so the proximity to Brookville Lane will certainly be of interest. Okay, thank you for indulging me. The last one was, I don't remember if there was a conversation about this or not in the last number of years, and if there was, I don't remember my position on it, so if I am crossing the street, as it were, it's not my intent. There was a request to release elements of the school board applications, particularly, I believe it's what experience do you have and why do you feel like you can contribute? I don't think there's an issue, at least allowing the public to see those two responses to folks. And I didn't want to just do it myself to someone or anyone who was interested in seeing that without at least getting council's check of approval. I don't remember if we had a conversation like that or not, but in any case, I believe those are the two items. I'm not interested in releasing, private information, even the resume, really. It's more those two items.
Just a second, this is Bob. That's something we talk about at the close of the public hearing tonight.
I'm happy to oblige the will of council. I just wanted to raise that. And if that's something we did want to consider now, that's fine. I just wanted to raise it ahead of the public hearing, that if that's something we can do.
There's no personnel facts in those two logs. We do cite the whole application as a personnel record. I might lean to the city attorney here to see if that's.
I think it's permissible. What you're asking for, I think, would fall outside personnel.
Those two specific parts.
Yeah, especially if it's part of the application process and you're not releasing personal contact information. I haven't seen each of the individual components, so I suppose hypothetically there could be something in it we'd want to redact. But generally, if it's like why they want to serve, what is their background, I don't see an issue with that.
I would tend to agree, and I think that would be a matter of the public record, especially if they don't do a public hearing. So in any event, just want to raise that, not trying to bog us down, especially before concluding the public hearing, but considering the public hearing was coming back, we might want to consider that.
Ms. Reed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple things. One, congratulations to the Heritage High School girls track and field team for winning the Class 3 state championship. That's awesome. Good job, girls. And then also congratulations to all of our recent high school graduates. That's also super exciting. So excited to see what all our new graduates do around the city and where they all go from here. So good job to all the graduates. That's all.
Mr. Wilder?
Yes, real briefly, again, thank you for the opportunity. I do want to mention that the community court, the recovery court, had the graduation, I think it was last week. It was so amazing and so inspirational. So I encourage you, I don't know if the tape is out there or not, just the community court is doing such an amazing work. I want to commend our judges. I think Michael Doucette was the Commonwealth attorney at the time when it got started. I want to commend him and all the judges who continue to support that program, and all the staff members that we have, this Bethany Harrison, and all the other ones that are doing that project. It's really changing lives. And the one lady came up and she said, she made the comment that her family wasn't a problem, she was the problem. And that court had changed her life. So it was a beautiful, beautiful ceremony. So I want to commend the staff, the city staff for that. Juneteenth is on June the 20th at Miller Park from 11 to 2. It's a free event. They're spotlighting our children. So those who can, try to support that event as much as you can. And also, I just want to always want to spotlight the Fresh Fridays in Lynchburg. I mean, it's just, when you come downtown and see all the art shows and things that are going forth, and music and everything of that nature, it is always amazing. They had a great art show down at the corner of Main and Church and Main, 12th and Main, yes, I'm sorry. I think Mr. Coast's art show, you know, we knew they had some situations there last week, you know, but that didn't stop him from continuing to have his art show. So I want to commend them for that. And also in the Lynchburg Museum, there's a project called From Beginning to Space or something like that nature, where they talk about Lynchburg's history with the Chap Factory and so many other things, and it goes all the way to Leland Melvin going to space. So the person, I think it was a 11th grader from the governor's school I think she's from Amherst, but she's from the governor's school that did the project. And I was like, she's at the governor's school, but I was just so amazed that she was in charge of that project and what she did there. And it's on display. So if you have a chance, please go to the Lynchburg Museum. It is an amazing exhibit to look at all the stuff that from Lynchburg back in the 1800s to where we are today and how science has been a major part of that. So it's really eye-opening experiment, and to see a high school student that put that together was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Most of my items were covered in PDC today, so I'll leave them there and bring them forward later. I know this technically isn't a time of discussion, but piggybacking Mr. Feraldi's conversation on the school board, my only question would be the expectations of the applicant at the time that they filled out the application. So that would be my primary concern with the context of release, because some weigh more heavily on the resume, some weigh more heavily on the answered or unanswered questions, and that may have been addressed differently if they had a different expectation at the time of filling out the application. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had two things, and I have one because one of them was Taylor Road, and that's been addressed. I'm told that you can't take a kick scooter across the hump without the bottom of the child scooter dragging on the hump in the middle of the road. That's what I'm told. I haven't tried it. I'm willing to go try it if I need to, but it's so that's just one thing. So as long as you guys are on it.
Public Works is aware and is going out to assess it. So we are, there's issues to make sure we do.
Great. So yeah, I'd appreciate that. The second one is Peachtree Park Senior Softball. So I got some concerns sent to me in a text message. I'm going to just kind of try to paraphrase this because it's very long, but there's issues with the fields being groomed in time for the games. They've had to cancel some of the games for them. And in some particular days where I guess one of the guys who's in the program was out there at 2:30 and the field was in perfect condition for being groomed, and then it was canceled because the field was wet. Rather than trying to groom it and prepare it, they just canceled on them. So and then miscommunication about which fields were being supposed to be prepared for them to show up. So just if we can get a kind of just a good look at making sure there's good, solid communication and preparation for the senior softball league that's playing out there, and that the fields are prepared. That's a pretty big passion for them, and one of the things they love to spend their time doing. And it's kind of a bummer when the games get canceled when they could have happened.
Mr. Deemer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank the city police staff for helping with my request regarding Leesville Road. We still have a lot of speeding going on there, and this was really probably a public comment that I wanted to address to Mr. Benda directly or the police chief. But if somebody can pass this along to him, I would appreciate it. I'm thankful for the directed patrols that I've seen and the radar that's been set up around Heritage High School, which is significantly, I think, slowed down some of the speeders. There's a straightaway on Leesville that is abused by drivers and specifically motorcyclists sometimes. That it's not a dragway, it's not a raceway, and somebody's already been killed there. So we're trying to figure out a solution there, whether it's a reduced speed or a consistent speed all the way down that road. That might be a possible idea that I want to talk about with the police chief or others involved. But if we can get some maybe directed patrols or radars set up down on the other end of Leesville, down near Greenview. We've got the center facility that's getting ready to open up there, major facility. And we also got Wawa coming in. And I've got several business owners and residents who are willing to allow their driveways to be used for the police to set up radar down at that end occasionally. So if they need to be put in contact with those willing residents who want to make the place safer for everybody, I can connect the police with them and they can set up the radar in their driveways or in their businesses. So we just want to make sure that it's safe. And I appreciate you passing that along. Thank you.
Mr. Dean, the one thing I think is worth mentioning is at council's request, we have gone through, we're in the middle of the process of conducting a speed study on Leesville Road, which we will come back to council with the results on as well.
Great.
So that's in process.
I've heard about that. Thank you.
I have one little thing. What about parking in Lynchburg? People park it's chaotic parking. They pull across a double lane street in front of you to park in the wrong direction. I think we need to create our revenue in that area by giving out tickets. We do not teach our kids in driver's ed to park in traffic. You park with the flow of traffic. All over town, all over Lynchburg, people just pull up in front of you, almost cause head-on collisions just to park in the wrong direction. It needs to stop. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Back here 7 o'clock. Thank you.